to see if he was barefoot. Is that still the case? Is he barefoot? Because I know on Facebook somebody posted a picture of these could be his shoes, or is that so he is presumed to be barefoot at this point?
What I can say is that his mom says all of his shoes are accounted for at the house. I'm not going to say that he's barefoot.
All right.
Allegedly!
Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is Lady Freedom here coming at you with another raw narrative. Here's a brief disclaimer for tonight's show. Let's watch.
That's ignorant! Allegedly, that's ignorant! Ignorant.
Judgment, Austin.
Oi, you read my thoughts. You've got the shinin.
You mean shining?
Shh, you wanna get sued?
Judgment, Austin.
You just use that shin of yours to call me and I'll come a-running. But don't be reading my mind between 4 and 5. That's Willie's time.
Hey, yo, boss. I love it when he does that.
Let's watch.
Don't get me back to good bullshit.
Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is Lady Freedom here coming at you with another raw narrative, and I see MS Adam Forever 21. Good to see all of you guys tonight. Thanks for coming in. Hey Jocelyn, and thank you so much Show Poodles for gifting a Lady Freedom membership. If you got a Lady Freedom membership, then make sure you say thank you to Show Poodles. It's so nice to have you all here. I hope you're having a great Friday. I saw Hey Jude, I saw Megan Els, I saw Rogue, we have couponing. I saw Jacqueline from the UK. Thank you for being here, Jacqueline from the UK. And we have, let's see, Town Chat Cafe and Reynolds, Rogue. Good to see you, Rogue. Just me and Michelle and everyone else coming in. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, Joseph Rapp. Good to see you, my friend. And then also I see Bobby. Good to see you, Bobby. And Carla, hey Carla. So Carla says, when did Betty get notified her case was thrown out? I bet uh, I saw it like about an hour after she released it, and it was probably sometime in the afternoon, I'm guessing, because that's when I was on YouTube. But a big congratulations to Betty for getting the charges dropped. Yeah, so thanks, Carla, for bringing that up, because I definitely want to congratulate Betty. Yeah, I'm so glad. It's good for free speech, right? We all can say what we want to say on here if we are willing to get a microphone, or you don't even really need a microphone, and you can get up here and you can say whatever you want, because we're American. Hey, Justice Jane, good to see you. And and there's a lot of different countries like that can do that, and some people can't. So we got to be grateful for that. So tonight I wanted to talk a little bit about, and I feel bad because I cut off. I should have checked my spec before I put it up here, but I wanted to bring in uh, detective perspective. It's a really nice job of kind of explaining things in a good way to where we can understand why he's thinking what he's thinking, or saying what he's saying when he analyzes. I look at him as an expert. Also have some experts in Jack and Lily's case. So Jack and Lily Sullivan are a brother and sister, 4 and 6, and they went missing from Nova Scotia. And I thought we should talk about them tonight because they've been missing for a week now. Friday, May 2nd was when they went missing. The description on Jack and Lily is going to be, and I can pull in an overlay picture. I just had too many in there. Lily was wearing a pink shirt with pink pants and pink rain boots. And she also was alleged to have a little white backpack with strawberries on it. And then you have Jack, who is the younger one. So he's 4. Lily's 6 and Jack is 4. Jack is wearing a brown shirt, brown pants. He does wear pull-ups. He's a little guy. And, he was wearing blue rain boots when they were last seen. But there's a lot to the story already as it unfolds. So, hey, Seth, good to see you. And then I also wanted to just go into, the sighting of Sebastian tonight. So I'm glad that Seth is here. I just wanted to put out a short video of the person who put it on TikTok. I'm not even quite sure who put it on TikTok, but it was a TikToker who released it. Am I cutting out, Carla? I'm sorry. You know what? It might have been my air conditioner started. I can turn this off. Hold on. Let me just, or I'll turn it down. There we go. Hey, Meow. Good to see you. Okay, hopefully my audio's okay. Hey, Audrey, good to see you. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for dropping Deception Detective. Yeah, he's really good, guys. We like Deception Detective over here. I know a lot of our chatters think he's easy on the eyes, and I would have to agree. Thanks, Adam Forever 21. You guys are awesome. Thank you for all your well wishes last night. I had a really bad headache. Really quick before we get into everything too, just wanted to send out prayers for my good friend's granddaughter. She is being taken right now to the hospital because they found out that she has something really, really wrong with her. She's very sick, and I don't want to go into it, but she's only 2 years old. We call her Lily. I babysat for her before I moved to Florida, and she's my little buddy. And so just pray for her and her family because they're going through a lot. They're rushing up to the hospital right now, which is where the specialists are. And it's about like 4.5 hours away. So just pray that they make it there safe. Pray that, you know, she's not in pain, because it is affecting her bones. And I'm sad for my little friend and for my family in Missouri. So please say prayers there. Also, Margaret Chappell, a friend of ours, was asking for prayers in the comments, so definitely pray for her too. But without further ado, let's get into Sebastian's sighting, a possible sighting of Sebastian, right? So we are looking at a gas station. Did I pull it in? Gee whiz, I was trying to pull so many different pictures in, and okay, so this is the area. So I mapped it just a little bit for a reference, right? So Hendersonville to Bristol, Virginia, right? I'm horrible with maps, so don't make fun of me, but my map skills aren't up to par. But then we also have this kind of map right here where it shows, you know, the whole entire area of this Bristol place, right? So you can kind of see what's over by there. You know, it looks like a big golf course, you know, golf clubs and things like that. So, and then we see this is the area of the gas station too. A close-up view of the gas station area. And, okay. Let me see if I could, give me just 1 second, guys. Let me see if I could add this quick overlay. This piqued my attention. Now, this is an older picture that I got off of Google. Oh, see, hold on. Let me delete one of these. Oh, okay. I did. That's Lillian Jack, by the way. Okay, let me take this one off. Sorry, I'm a little wacky tonight. You guys are going to have to deal with it. A little wacky tonight. Let's see. But I just found this to be interesting because, you know, whenever there's, oh gosh, there's Just for Men, Chris. Whoops, we didn't mean to do that. And there we go. So this is what kind of piqued my interest. So here's the Valero. It's off of exit 7, right, in Bristol, Virginia. And there's a big old bus there that looks like it, you know, might stop, you know, kind of like one of those Greyhound buses or, you know, charter buses. So whenever I see that, I'm kind of wondering if it's on the bus route, right? Now, again, this picture, I think, was 5 or 6 years old when I looked at how old the picture was on Google. But just something interesting there. And I thought it was noteworthy because we just don't know. And then here we are. I'm just going to play this video here.
Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is Lady Freedom here, coming at you with another raw narrative. Today I wanted to bring awareness to a possible sighting of Sebastian Rogers in Bristol, Virginia. It is said he was seen outside of a Valero gas station off of Route 7. As you can see from this picture, this is on the bus route, so it looks like he could have had a way to get to this location, or someone may have brought him there and dropped him off. Either way, I'm sure his father Seth will follow up on this lead to the fullest and let us know if it is Sebastian or if it isn't. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below, and we will talk about it tonight live. Let's watch.
I was just sent this video and I really want to get this out there. There was a potential sighting of Sebastian Rogers in Bristol, Virginia. The video was taken outside of a Valero gas station off exit 7. What do you guys think? Do you think this could be Sebastian Rogers? I did send this into the Sumner County Sheriff's Office, and obviously we're going to have to just wait and see if they can vet that and figure out what is going on with that and if that could be Sebastian Rogers. I will say that if you feel like you are seeing someone who is a missing person, put your phone down, don't record, keep your eye on them, and call authorities right away, because this could have been figured out if this was Sebastian or not hours ago, had that been done.
Okay, guys, so I just wanted to pop on really quick. I can't agree more with what this TikToker is saying. I think that if you see something, say something at that time, call the authorities. Do not wait. Do not record it and send it to YouTubers, TikTokers, or the like. Make sure that you tell law enforcement so we can make sure that we find out right away whether it's Sebastian or not. I personally don't think that it is Sebastian. There are just too many little differences that I can notice, but that doesn't mean that it's not. So I'll see you all later on tonight, and let's talk about how Sebastian could have gotten out of the house in the first place.
I can't wait to see my son. I want to find him so bad.
No way, Kimosabe. This is my house now.
Okay, sorry guys. I always put those little silly things at the end so they don't make me do a short if I do a short video. I add those little things. So MS, I heard about this yesterday. Yesterday, this kind of broke. And credit to CNY family, because I just took that from her live and just zoomed in on all of it. So that's where I saw it. Hey, Ava, good to see you. Thank you for being here. And good to see you, Anne-Marie. Carla, thank you so much. Blessed Astrology for Mystics with Jen. Good to see you and thank you. I like Croc show poodles. They're comfortable. Yeah, it is. And you know, well, and I say too, I don't think personally that it is Sebastian, but you have to check. I mean, I can't imagine not ever, checking. We just have to. We have to. There's, and then Virginia, it's not terribly far away, so I mean, there's just lots of possibilities, but I do think the similarities are there. I do think maybe height wise, in different things, but then as I looked closer, I was like, well, I don't think so. But I'm sure they're checking into it. And Michelle says, I watched both this and the Texas Roadhouse, zoomed in on his feet, the way he walked in both, since you say he walks on his tiptoes and the video shows flat-footed walking. I noticed that too, Michelle. I'm glad that you said that. I noticed that too. And that was one thing that kind of gave me like a no, right? I was like, oh, I don't think so. But I did notice that there were certain points in his walking that he was kind of walking, flat-footed, if you will. And not really, and two, I think it was when he was more focused in, because of course and I'm not sure which one you compared with the Texas Roadhouse, but this one I was trying to look too at his walking pattern, and it just seemed like he was a lot more focused in, and he was walking a little bit flatter. So but I'm glad you said that, because I did notice that as well. And sorry guys, good to see you, VW Holla Girl. And Positivity Time, good to see you. At least people are keeping their eyes open for him. Well, and that's a good point too. I think with the America's Most Wanted, being, everywhere. I mean, because it's not only on TV, people also will catch it on Hulu. So that's a major, win there. So I think that very well could be, one thing that was mentioned by the TikToker. And again, not to, you know, lecture anybody or anything like that, but I mean, we really have to get people to get in the mindset of making a phone call. And I mean, I know that's weird, you probably don't want to follow like a kid around, right? That's not right. I get that part, but I mean, you need to call really as fast as you can 911. I mean, pictures are good, yes, but I think that it's really important because I mean, obviously, we would have been able to find out faster, as they said, and then also, for sure, get an absolute on it. So, but I do agree, and thank you for being so positive about it, because it's important too, that we get people's names out there, especially Sebastian, and I think that's what I think it could have been somebody from America's Most Wanted, honestly. I don't know where it came from, or where the person heard about Sebastian, but they were in Virginia and they were looking. And Shampoo says, I have a pair, but my friends think they're comfortable. Yeah. Or you've never had a pair. Yeah. No, they are really, really comfortable. They are. They're like, I don't know, like not spongy, but I don't know. They're comfortable. Hey, Joan. Joan says, I'm excited for Betty. She certainly didn't deserve what they did to her. No, I think it was a gross misuse of the system, especially being someone who's had to go through that before. And yeah, I'm very happy Joan too, as well. She's probably really, really glad about that. And I am too. Oh, you did compare the sighting with the video at the Texas Roadhouse, Michelle? Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, that one's really good to look at. I was trying to get, if the sign wasn't there, it would have been easier to see him, but I couldn't get like a good, comparison where he was facing toward it, the same direction as the boy that was walking. Thanks, Rogue. Carla says, I've always walked on my tiptoes until a friend I got on my butt about it, and it was hard, but I stopped. So I didn't think that don't matter. Yeah, and I mean, it could be like back and forth, because I kind of noticed, a little bit back and forth. I will say there was a lot of similarities. I saw a lot of similarities. It's kind of like that one picture we were looking at the other night too. So, hey, Linda Hall, good to see you. It's better to call the police. Yeah, and let them make the decision. Absolutely. Yeah, because I mean, you can't really like follow the kid around, right? But you can call and say which way he's going on the street, what street you saw him at, because if he's on foot, he's not going to be able to get very far. And I think an important thing too for people when they do call 911 is to say, hey, this child has an active Amber Alert for him. He is missing. And just let them know that right away, as soon as they can, or as soon as you can. If you can get a license plate of a car number, or if they're in a car or vehicle, that's another really important step to, being proactive about. Because I mean, yeah, it's great. We all would love to have Sebastian, on footage and see him, of course. And I love analyzing that type of footage, but it really needs to go to the proper places so that way he can be found. And Michelle says, but have to think it's been a year. So it's, yeah, absolutely. Growth spurts and all, Michelle. I agree. Oh, you don't like the little spiky things on the soles of the Crocs? Yeah. Sometimes they're just not comfortable at all. Those little spikes are not comfortable. But I mean, like, I've had the ones that were just kind of like smooth. The bottoms were smooth on them. Yeah, I have Converse too. Show poodles. Those are nice. Well, and that's true too. We just don't know how tall he is going to be at this point either. We just don't. We don't know what, how tall he's going to be. We don't know if he's grown out facial hair. I mean, obviously, Chris and Katie, I think the earliest that we heard about Sebastian's mustache, I think was back in May. That, so I mean, if it was coming in back then, I'm sure it's, a year later now. So, yeah. But let's go ahead and get into Lily and Jack's case for a little bit, and we'll kind of go back and forth. So, like I said, May 2nd, Lily and Jack go missing, and there's a couple of pictures of their house that I wanted to kind of share with all of you guys. So here's kind of an aerial view of the property, right? And this is where they went missing from. And here's kind of a close-up view of their porch, I believe. Did I pull that one? Yeah, there we go. So right there. And I'm assuming that's the door she's talking about, their mother is talking about, because it's the kind of sliding glass door that leads out. And she said that she couldn't hear it. So there was a few red flags. But that, again, that's Lily and Jack. The older one is 6 and the younger one is 4. And they're just absolutely adorable. And they've been missing for a week. And let's just get into this first clip.
A little boy and girl are missing in a wooded area in Pictou County. A search is underway right now for the two, last seen this morning. Let's bring in CTV's Jonathan McGinnis, who is in the search area. John, what can you tell us?
And Todd, that search is taking place on Gairloch Road in Lansdowne Station, which is just southwest of New Glasgow. Dozens of people are involved with that search. 4-year-old Jack Sullivan and 6-year-old Lily Sullivan were reported missing around 10 this morning. Lily might be wearing a pink sweater, pink pants, and pink boots, and Jack is believed to be in his blue dinosaur boots. It's believed they left a home on the Gairloch Road. A search began shortly after. Multiple agencies are trying to find the two children. That includes 2 helicopters. Ground search and rescue are also combing the area on foot, and police dogs are on the scene. RCMP issued a vulnerable missing persons alert, but they say there is no evidence of an abduction, so there has been no Amber Alert issued. Now, Todd, this is a rural, densely wooded area, and so far search conditions have been good. There was a brief shower early this afternoon. There is a sense of urgency here, Todd, given the length of time they've been missing and their age. And the family is being kept up to date on the search efforts. The police are asking the public to avoid the area to allow the trained searchers to do their jobs. Todd.
All right, John McGinnis at the search area in Pictou County. Now, just moments ago, we heard from Corporal Carly McCann of the RCMP.
There's a variety of resources, teams, and tools being applied right now in the search for these missing children. A variety of GSAR teams from across Nova Scotia, that's ground search and rescue teams, are putting together plans to ensure that coverage can be continuous. CASERA, which is the Civil Air Search and Rescue Association, as well as the Department of Natural Resources and Renewables, have planes in the air and helicopters and resources. There's also a variety of RCMP resources, including Nova Scotia RCMP Police Dog Services, drone operators.
As RCMP combed through woods and fields searching for 6-year-old Lily and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan, their stepfather Daniel Martel spends every evening conducting his own search.
As soon as I seen they were missing, I jumped right in the vehicle and I did every dirt road and searched every culvert.
The children are thought to have wandered away from their home in Lansdowne Station on Friday morning. Martel believes they were only gone for about 20 minutes before he and their mother noticed they were missing.
The very first day I wasn't around very much because I was just searching. I was running through the woods, screaming their name till my throat hurt.
Martel says the only concrete clue so far is a boot print found near the backyard of the property. RCMP haven't shared any additional evidence.
The officers and searchers on site are following up on anything that comes up that provides direction, provides specifics, and provides something that can be used to narrow the search.
In other news today, the search continues this morning for 2 missing children in rural Nova Scotia. Crews have been combing through the woods around Pictou County since Friday, when police believe they wandered away from their home. Brett Ruskin is live in Halifax. He's picking up the story for us this morning. Where do things stand today, Brett, with the search efforts?
Good morning, Heather. Yes, search efforts are continuing this morning for these 2 missing children here in Nova Scotia. So we have 6-year-old Lily Sullivan and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan. They went missing on Friday morning. Now, we heard from the children's stepfather recently. Here's what he had to say about this situation.
The last few days have been very stressful. I mean, ever since the Friday morning, when we noticed that the children were gone. Immediately jumped in the vehicle, surveyed all the area, as many dirt roads, as many culverts as I could, and waited for the police to get there.
So again, this search began with family members and has now expanded to dozens of search and rescue volunteers. About 160 people were on the ground yesterday. There were dogs brought in to try to catch a scent of these 2 children. There were 8 drone units in the skies searching, as well as a couple of helicopters as well, each one of them equipped with infrared sensors and cameras looking for these children. Now, we heard from police talking about some of the challenging conditions and logistical issues that they are running into with this situation, with the kind of the situation on the ground. Here's what police had to say about this search.
With the wet weather, it makes things a little more complicated for our searchers. Given they're in the woods, it's wet, things are slippery, footing's not the greatest. It's the water's it's not the best, but they're still trudging through and they're still working hard at doing the job that they have to do.
Again, we know that 6-year-old Lily Sullivan and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan went missing on Friday morning. That is when this search began and when the family reported them missing. And again, the search has been ongoing since that time. Heather.
Okay, guys, so, that's kind of a little bit of background in the first couple of days. And we're hearing a lot of the same terminology, of course. Hey, Shadow, good to see you. That we heard in the Sebastian Rogers case. So we're seeing, how they're going up with drones and cameras. They're searching everywhere. They're using the infrared technology. They did experience wet weather as well. The stepfather, or I don't know if it's a stepdad or if he's actually, married to the mother, or if it's just a boyfriend. Michelle says parents have an 18-month-old too, 3 kids and 2 parents in a home, but the brother and grandma also in an RV on the property as well. Thanks, Michelle, for letting us know that. Yeah, so that's really interesting. And, that's reminiscent of the Wells case, right? I know, and I have this little picture I snagged. Let's see here. Yeah, and then this one, says the mother has already been drug tested and removed from the home. RCMP and the Department of Community Services and Child Protective Services strongly recommend that she leaves the dwelling. Drug paraphernalia was located inside the home along with one of the vehicles. I cannot speak on who owned the vehicle or what exactly we found, but I can confirm that the drug paraphernalia was located at the residence. The mother and the baby were removed to a secure location away from this property. So that was released, to kind of give us a little bit more. So the 18-month-old baby and the mother are off the property, but the stepdad is stuck behind, right? And he's been saying he's searching, and that sort of thing. And Michelle says 4 adults, 3 kids on the property, and nobody thought to go outside when they heard them outside. Well, and the mother sets it up too, because we're going to hear her statement. She says that, you know, they went out the door, but then she's like, but we couldn't hear the door, like right after she said that. So no one said, you know, did you hear anything or anything like that? She just automatically offered that information up. And when we see that, it's really usually a good indicator that someone is covering their tracks, right? Trying to tell the story so that way there's no questions asked, right? In other words. And Rogue says, I do not like the way this case is going. Also, after 5 days, the search is called off, and the positive to what might be, they suspect something nefarious has caused these kids to go missing. Yeah, they do. They actually, the authorities at this point, unfortunately, are saying that they don't believe that Lily and Jack are still with us because of the length of time they've been out, and because obviously the ages of they are, if they were, you know, supposedly walked off somewhere. But I think that they would have been found just basically looking at the lay of the land there. And we also hear from the stepfather that 20 minutes after Lily and Jack went missing, they were reported missing. But how would he know that? How would he be able to give that specific time frame and know that? I mean, I absolutely think somebody would have heard something. Okay, boyfriend. She did say partner, Michelle. You're right. Yeah. She did say partner, and that's what kind of made me think. You know, I mean, arguably, if you're married to someone, they're your partner. But yeah. So perhaps he is just a boyfriend. Either way, you know, we'll get into Deception Detective, but he even says, you know, when there is a, you know, step parent in the household, it's a higher risk for things like neglect and things like that to happen. Which, you know, he says stepfather. I think it could be a stepfather or stepmother. I think it could be like anybody other than a biological family. But then again, sometimes we hear horrendous stories about biological family members doing things. And so it's just, you know, unfortunate that anybody would hurt these beautiful kids. They're adorable. Anne says, I heard that they might have been gone not seen since Thursday. Yeah, so we're going to get into that a little bit too. You're right, Anne. I heard that too. And basically that the kids hadn't been in school for the whole week before this, right? So missing on Friday, not in school the whole entire week before that, definitely raises some red flags. We also have a statement from the neighbor, and we'll get into that a little bit later, and I'll read it for you all and pop it up on the screen here. But apparently, the neighbor didn't really think that that there were kids living in the house, and nor did they. You know, they thought that it was kind of like a trap house, right? So they didn't know the kids were even there, and apparently there was so many cars the one day, and they had some sort of a party. And Adam Forever 21 says these laws regarding parents when missing children come up need to be revamped big time. Yeah, I agree. Seems like the urgency is not there right out of the gate. Yeah, and I mean, it's so hard to believe. I agree, Adam Forever 21. Thank you for your comment. It's just so hard to believe. Like, if you look at this property, and they're teeny little, you know, 4 and 6, right? I mean, they're little, and that's a big property. And I mean, there's like buildings and stuff. That's the porch. We got like a big outbuilding, sort of. I don't know what is housed in that building. And then you see that building in proximity to the house. And then, of course, this is the neighbor this is kind of a little bit of a map and where the neighbor allegedly lived right down the road 6 minutes. And then again, the house. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that they could have, that could have detoured them. So 20 minutes, I don't know. I don't know how far they could have gotten in 20 minutes. And that's, again, another view of the property. So there's plenty of places to park, but there was somebody even parked on the street, allegedly, according to the neighbor. But just a really big property, even rural surroundings. There's another look. So, yeah, it's just bizarre. Hey, Baba Rose, good to see you. Welcome in, everyone. Hey, YouTuber. Yeah, they need the canines to sniff the place. Oh, yeah, the whole place. I agree. Yeah. Oh, it's a common law marriage. Okay. Thanks, Hey Jude. Yeah, so common law, they've been together for a while. Michelle says they said go into the scale back the search and the cadaver dogs going to be used soon as they can. Yeah, so they did scale the search back after about a week, right? We're about to see Hey YouTuber. And Hey Jude says someone said there aren't a lot of cadaver dogs available in Canada, like 14. I don't know though. Wow, really? I didn't know that. That's interesting. Well, we're going to find out later too, because they're going to have to call in an expert to do a polygraph test, because apparently they don't have polygraphers up that way either. Now, I don't know if it's the truth or if that's something that the stepdad just said, but we'll hear him say it. Carla says, didn't that they say at first she had left him and the kids, they're both autistic, day after she left, the kids were gone. I didn't hear that yet, Carla. I'm not sure about that, if that's true or not. I just kind of pulled in some news clips, to get us started on the case, because I would like to talk about it further. It's just bizarre. These two little ones, they didn't get far. If they walked off, they didn't get far, in my opinion. Michelle says they both gave leads together for a motive for themselves. When describing the children, she says they are verbal. It might be on the spectrum. Okay, either they are not. Yeah, one way, and she sounds like she's not even sure. Yeah, well, and again, I think it's almost setting things up to be like, well, they'll talk to anyone, and yeah, it's possible that somebody could have grabbed them up because they'll talk to anyone. But I also think, too, one red flag for me, Michelle, was when they were talking about how they will talk to anyone. And I thought to myself, well, sometimes that's when kids are starving for attention. They'll just talk to anyone, and they'll talk your ear off. And that's what she said that they were doing, is that they would talk people's ears off. Well, that's usually because they're not getting that type of attention at home, unless they're a very talkative child. I was that way. Baba Rose says, I wondered, go figure. Bob Rose says, I wonder the same thing, 20 minutes. How would he know if he was asleep? Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing, they're always in and out of sleep, Bob Rose. I'm like, oh, I'm getting a bad feeling, But yeah, absolutely. It's like, how can you pinpoint that exact time frame, right? It's weird. Yeah, and especially if they had just woken up, because that's what they were saying. MS says, Michelle, FYI, it takes years and years to get a spectrum diagnosis. Yeah, and it does. And that's the thing, too, little girls. Thanks for saying that, MS. You're right. And little girls tend to be diagnosed later than boys. And we also saw a late diagnosis with Sebastian. And I just attribute that, and maybe there's other factors as well, but this is my opinion. I think probably had a lot to do with the fact that he has the rare chromosome deletion, and that there's similar factors and qualities and things like that he's going to experience having autism and the chromosome deletion. So they probably overlooked that. I'm not very happy with the medical profession at this time, especially because, as I said before, my friend's granddaughter, they were taking her in bringing her in and so I mean we're all human. We're not going to be perfect. You know what I mean? People miss things. And Shadow says allegedly there was a party at their house the night before. Yeah, that's what I've heard. I've heard that they had like a really big party, and the place was packed with cars, and the neighbor was thinking that they might be, hitting, a smack ripe, something that rhymes with smack mipe. I don't know how to say it on here. I have a feeling this is going to be like one of those cases where we're going to have to come up with funny words to describe things. But I hope they're found. I mean, like I said, I just don't see what could have happened. And again, we don't know when they were really, honestly, discovered to be missing, if at all, right? Because a lot of this leads me to believe, which we'll watch it here in these clips, that we may not even be working with the proper time frame of events, or timeline of events. Michelle says, gone from school for a week. Did anybody see the kids out? Well, according to the neighbors, they didn't know they had kids, but that was only one neighbor. And, it is a rural area that they're living in. So there's that. I know husband's grandbaby is. Hey, social butterfly. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. The partner offered to Polly if they wanted him to. He did. And that was one thing that I found to be, a little bit different in this case, right? Is that, yeah, the boyfriend or the significant other to the mother did say that I just want everyone to take a polygraph. I want to take a polygraph. I want everybody else to take a polygraph so they know, what's going on. That's what I'd want to do. I'd want to have a polygraph too, so nobody would, continue to look at me and they would start looking for my child. Social Butterfly says, not sure if diagnosed professionally yet. Yeah, see, and that's what the mother said. Thanks, Social Butterfly. Yeah, they're saying smack rape. I'm trying. This is what you get when I'm like really out of it. But yeah, so hey Jude. All right, guys, let's watch this next clip and see what we think of this. This case here. It's just really weird.
What can people do if they're trying and hoping to help?
Yeah, folks might think that, hey, I live nearby, I could hop in the car and go and search through the woods. I can help out as well, but that's not necessarily what officials want. They say this is a very coordinated, very organized search. They know where each one of the crews are. They know the areas that have been searched already and the areas that they are now focusing on. So advising residents to not just drive out and try to help out with the search on their own in the woods. One thing that people can help with is searching their own properties, looking in ditches, culverts, sheds, or any other possible hiding area that these children may have used for shelter. That is how people can help. And again, we know that the temperature has dropped a little bit overnight, but we haven't seen below zero temperatures. So again, these search efforts are continuing now, beginning their 4th day of searching.
The desperate search continues here in Pictou County, Nova Scotia. More than 100 search and rescue workers, many of them volunteers, continue their efforts working alongside the RCMP. As the massive search continues in the thickly wooded area of this Nova Scotia community, 6-year-old Lily and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan's mother and stepfather are holding out hope, waiting and praying for any good news.
The very first day I wasn't around very much because I was just searching. I was running through the woods, screaming their name till my throat hurt.
The focus of the search involves a radius of several kilometers from where the children were last seen playing on Friday.
We want to bring these 2 children home to their parents. We've got people who've been here since day one, since the first time the call came in. So they're tired and they're optimistic. They have one job. This is all search and rescue does, is they try to bring people home safely.
The search area has expanded on an hourly basis, and the methods being deployed are also changing. Originally, there were 2 search and rescue helicopters. Now there are 3, and rescue workers have deployed 5 drones to assist in their efforts to find these missing children.
6-year-old Lily and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan loved playing on the slide in their backyard. Now their mother, Maleha Brooks Murray, can barely look at it.
I'm just staying as hopeful as possible. I want them home. I want to hold them. And I want them home.
It's been 4 days since police believe Lily and Jack wandered away from their home. Today, more than 120 people are searching on foot, by drone, and from the air.
It has been a few days, but that has not dampened the hopes of the GSAR teams and the police who are here to try and get these kids home.
RCMP have been focusing on a 3.5-kilometer radius from where the children were last seen, but that search zone expanded today further into the thick woods.
There's teams and units from the RCMP who have a variety of different tasks to be completed. So there's work being done across all sorts of areas in order to collect the information needed to locate them.
RCMP says the weather has complicated the search, making visibility and terrain more difficult to navigate. They're tying ribbons like the ones you see behind me in the areas they've searched already, and they've added another helicopter to scan the area from above.
I just want to remain hopeful. But there's always, in a mother's mind, you're always thinking the worst.
All of it is a shock to the community.
It's not something that happens very often, and you're just hoping, praying they find them as soon as they can.
With each hour, concern grows, and the search to find Lily and Jack becomes more urgent.
I miss them.
For now, the family holds on to the hope the children will be found and they'll be back playing in their backyard once again. Hafsa RF CTV News, Lansdowne Station.
I want them home. I want to hold them. And I want them home. What happened was we woke up, I heard them playing in the next room beside us, and I was drifting in and out of sleep. And they're not the type of kids that we tell them not to go outside on their own. We always make sure that we're out there with them, watching them. And they happen to just get out that sliding door, and we can't hear it when it opens. And they were outside playing, but we weren't aware of it at the time.
That's Maleha Brooks Murray talking about her missing children. And for someone who doesn't know what happened, she seems to know a lot about what happened. So in today's video, let's watch her interview and see if we can spot any guilty knowledge.
Okay, guys, so guilty knowledge, right? We love Deception Detective because he always reminds us of that. So, hey, Cinderella, good to see you. So basically, we have the mother saying things like, I want to hold them and I want them home, right? But it just kind of comes off a little bit odd to me, right? And then she also says that she's remaining hopeful, but mothers tend to think the worst. Hey, Deborah, good to see you. Yeah, playing outside. Where? Yeah, you were asleep. Exactly. Well, and she really sets it up too, right? She says, you know, they went out the sliding glass door, but we can't hear it when it opens. You know, they were outside, but we didn't know, type of a thing. Also, you know, we see a lot of what we saw in Sebastian Rogers' case, right? The search areas, they were looking for hiding areas that the children might have gone in for shelter or just to hide. They had the helicopters out. Daniel says that he wasn't around. He was in the woods yelling until his throat hurt. And then he also says, you know, that he was searching for the kids. I don't know, the throat hurt thing kind of rubbed me the wrong way, right? Because the last thing I would be thinking about is my own throat at that point in time. But that's just me. They expanded the search, right? And they were tying ribbons like they were doing in Sebastian Rogers' case. The areas that they had already hit, they were tying those ribbons to signify that those were searched, and you know, at least once. And Meg says the kids didn't go to school all week. Who's to say they didn't go missing the Saturday before? Exactly. Yeah. And I don't believe that we are working with a very good time frame here, right? Because he says 20 minutes afterwards, he reported the kids missing. I don't think we're working with an accurate time frame from him. I really don't. I agree. Especially if the kids weren't in school all week. Michelle says he's been on interviews left and right or offered to give whatever they need, including Polly. Yeah, some is trying to help. Yeah. And he's also he wants to help. Yeah, hard to tell yet. It is. It's very hard to get a read on Daniel. I agree. He seems like he wants to find the kids, right? But then some of his statements have been off. Again, more like a sympathy grab, in my opinion. I see that a little bit with Daniel. Just with I was yelling till my throat hurt. He has been giving interviews left and right. He has been saying some of the things that you would expect for a parent to say. Ann Reynolds says, I'm not going to be on long tonight. We're going to do stuff. Oh, good. Well, good, Ann. I hope you have a good day doing that. I know that you guys like to go garage sailing and stuff. Allegedly from April 28th to 2nd of May. And how far can two children get in 20 minutes? In my opinion, it was a lot longer missing to not be cited. I agree, because especially with that area, they would have to have gotten around that fence. There's a lot of factors I think that would come into play. For me to think that the kids just walked off, especially because they haven't been found for a whole week. I would think that they would have been, sorry guys, I had to plug that in. Yeah, I would have thought they would have been found somewhere in the woods, maybe a little bit scared, cold or whatever, but, and maybe have some injuries from walking around out there. But it's just too long. Thanks, Cinderella. I hope you're having a great night too. Yeah, and they're always playing, Deborah, too. Like, they're always out there playing, aren't they? It's like in all of these cases, the kids are always playing, and then all of a sudden, boom, they vanish. It's weird. We're not dealing with Jumanji, so it's weird. And Michelle says there was 2 other adults in the RV. They heard them. Why not go outside with them? Right. Or at least let somebody know that the kids are outside. If you say you're in your RV and you peek out the window and you see the kids are out there, but nobody's supervising them, you might call over, text, or go outside, right? Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a lot of different things that could have been done there. I agree. And Baba Rose says what she just did does not make any sense. Right. No, it doesn't make any sense. And just setting herself up each time, in my opinion, just setting herself up to not be questioned further. Again, when she talks about how the sliding glass door is the way that they left, but they can't hear it, right away she offered that information up without even being asked about it. Hey, Detroit Rock City, good to see you. And Sammy says, oh, hey, I don't know. You were long, so how late am I? Maybe I can catch up. Yeah, no, basically we were looking over the Sebastian Rogers possible sighting that we have in Virginia. And then now we're just talking about Lily and Jack. And I did a couple of, only 2 clips so far, Sammy, so you're not too far behind. But thank you for being here. And Michelle says drifting in and out of sleep could be from being up with the baby from other excuses. Aw. Aw. Well, I hope your baby's doing good. Detroit Rock City says somebody just said that there's a huge police presence at their home right now. Really? Oh, okay. Well, and I know the mother and the 18-month-old are not in the house anymore, allegedly. I think it's just the stepfather or Daniel. Cinderella says, in my opinion, one of the maternal or paternal grandparents may be hiding them. If they are on an Indian settlement, one has Yeah, it has to talk. Yeah, absolutely. Or, we have to kind of think that way as well. I agree. Thanks, Detroit, for hitting that like. Yeah, so I mean, I agree with that, Cinderella. And then also, I heard there was, a clash in the family. Now, of course, this is going to happen. It's bound to happen when stress levels are high. So I'm definitely praying that everything goes okay for them. But I do think that there probably is some tension, and if they're thinking that somebody might have taken the kids, if there was a situation where one was going to leave the other, it can be a little bit, um, you know, frightening what can happen when the kids are involved in something like that. Cinderella says the scent of the kids ended at the driveway. Oh, I didn't know that, Cinderella. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, so the dogs took only to the end of the driveway. So they made it to the end of the driveway. Let's take a look. I know it's up here too on that picture, but I mean, that's the end of the driveway right there. Hey, Seashell, good to see you. Hey, I am Two Bear. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. First, they say mom and partner hasn't contacted each other, and then they said next that they had sporadic contact. So not really sure how the mom has been on interview since. Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know how she hasn't been on interviews either. It's very weird when they don't want to interview, in my opinion. Oh, they're digging under the trailer, Sammy? Oh no. Oh no. Oh man. That's no good. I am Two Bear says, why wouldn't the door be locked and secured if the parents were sleeping? Yeah, absolutely. I am Two Bear, especially if you couldn't hear them getting out. I mean, absolutely. And say they did get out, they have those alarms that they can put on the doors to make them more. But again, why were the kids just up and about and mom's sleeping? That's strange too. Or both parents in the house are sleeping. If one's going to take a nap or something, okay. But yeah, Seashell says they're searching under the trailer. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Mm. Well, that's not good. Yeah, that's not good. Oh, thank you, Sammy. Yeah, my little buddy Lily. I know. Yeah, thank you. And Michelle says the parents drifting in and out of sleep because if it was me, that means I better go looking too. Yeah, my kids are all grown, but that was cute. Yeah, yeah. Oh, okay. I I see what you're saying, Michelle. Yeah, I agree though because you would just think that that would be the first thing that would come to your, mind. But again, it's weird that they'd be sleepy and the kids are up, because usually you're more alert when the kids are awake and then, or at least one parent or another is up doing things. Um, when the dogs have hit on them under the trailer. I would think so. I am Two Bear. That's a good point. Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, and not taking them to the end of the driveway. Hey, wait, what? Good to see you. Oh, thank you, Seashell. I don't know even that it was a migraine. And thank you guys for your well wishes too and good advice. It was just like a really bad headache, and I tried to lay down, and I was like, oh, I could get rid of it. I'll just lay down for like an hour, and it just was not go away. And then finally, it was just like a dull roar. But yeah, imagine that the sliding, glass door is so quiet. I know. Well, and that's the thing too, and you know how little kids are, sometimes they slam that stuff. They'll, like, slam it shut and, but they also kind of set it up to where, it's almost like they want us to think that, like, Lily and Jack decided to leave because it said that she was with uh, white backpack and it had little strawberries on the back of it. So it was white and then I'm guessing, pink or red strawberries on it. So again, hey Twitch. Again, it's just like, you know. I don't know if they brought in the cadaver dog Cinderella. That's a good point. I don't know which dogs they had in. I would think they would have brought scent dogs, into the woods or something. If they thought they did wander off, then they would have been someplace in the woods. But, thanks, Twitch. I appreciate you being here. Wait, what says seems like the back door was the main entrance, in my opinion. Yeah, it does. It does. Because there's another view of the home, like this way, too. And then, of course, you see like the camper in the back over there, which, I mean, it is a pretty big property where, I mean, you might not be able to see everything that's going on. Hey, Ann Brock. I don't think so, Twitch. No, I don't think it was Sebastian, in my opinion, but we're still not sure yet. Still not sure yet. Hey, Roger. I am Two Beer says, I have never heard a silent sliding glass door, even in a rich house. They always rumble. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point. You could hear it. You could definitely hear it. And then, like that suction, whenever you like open it or close it too. You're right. Absolutely. And I don't know where their bedroom's located, so, but her offering that information up was also like a huge red flag to me. Social Butterfly says, in my opinion, didn't someone say they had a party the night before? Yeah, maybe why they were sleeping. Or, yeah, or sleepy. Absolutely. Yeah, that's what the neighbor was saying. And I think we could probably even pull that in right now, and I'll read it to you guys, what the neighbor said. So the neighbor said, and of course, this is allegedly in the neighbor's opinion. This is all hearsay, but it says, I have to wonder if they'll ever be found, let alone if we'll ever know the truth of what happened to them. So that's really grim. Says they live 500 feet from me, and that's Canadian talk. They say A, right? I didn't even know kids lived there at all. I thought it was a drug house, right? So they thought it was like a trap house. This one's a little bit smaller. So it says, there's always cars there, and it's so odd to me, but I can't remember clearly if it was Wednesday or Thursday, but there was so many cars there on that particular day that the driveway was full, and a car was even parked on the side of the main road. It was like 2 p.m. at the latest, and I remember driving past, judging them, thinking how they were probably in there sharing a rack tripe, right? Or whatever, LOL. And then boom, Friday, this all comes out. Like, I'm in distress over it, and it's also effed up, right? It's effed. So effed. So that's what the neighbor had to say. And they live like 500 feet away. And here's kind of like a little map, right, to kind of show you guys. So really, really interesting. And I'm not sure. So the neighbor alleges that the party, happened maybe Thursday or Wednesday, but they can't recall the exact day. So just so sad. Yeah, there we go. Thanks, Social Butterfly. Cream backpack with strawberries, but step parent said it would be dirty. Aw. Well, that's sad. Her little backpack would be all dirty. And that kind of set it up for, like as in they were going somewhere, right? Because I mean, if Sebastian had taken a backpack, I would probably be thinking, that maybe he was planning on leaving, right? And so that's what kind of made me think that, they were setting it up that way because, what would she need a backpack for? Especially, she hadn't been in school for a week. Neither of the children had been in school for a week, allegedly. And Michelle says, my thought was, why would a 6-year-old get backpack unless she was going somewhere? And maybe since it was morning, maybe they got dressed, was walking to go to the bus and just kept walking. Well, that's possible too. And, if they hadn't been in school all week, maybe they were ready to go back to school. I mean, sometimes kids like to go to school, especially when they're little, of course, and then they want to see their friends. And, if mom and dad are partying and ignoring them all the time, or there's all these random people all around, then that could be something that's stressful for them too. And they probably did want to go back to school. You know, Aw, you're welcome, Twitch. You're welcome. Yeah, me too. I'm just learning this about this one too, and it's really sad. Um, you know, um, it's just weird, kind of the sequence of events, how they match up with kind of what we've been talking about. Again, these patterns that we see in true crime. Um, I am Two Bear says another parent who is clueless but knows which door they left out of. I mean, I wasn't even paying attention when I said that, and then there's I am Two Bear. Exactly. I mean, and those are the little nuances that we're noticing that I noticed right off the bat. I'm like, oh no, not this again, you know. And then the 20 minutes, and it's just. Oh yes, couponing. I hope you have a great busy day tomorrow. I hope you have a great day. Thank you. Keep sleuthing, super sleuth. And I am Two Bear says there is no house 50 feet from them that has to be a troll. Oh, I mean, I didn't look at the whole area right around their house. I did not. I could have probably Google Earthed it. Thanks, I am Two Bear though. Yeah, so they might be getting trolled, and that's the thing too. A lot of people like to insert themselves. When we were talking about Summer Wells's case, people were telling me, Lady Freedom, don't trust the neighbor. And so I'm like, okay. But yeah, oh good. Thank you guys for looking for updates. I was hoping that something would have come up. Okay, neighbor, just text you, read, but there's a video kids party, so maybe they might have been cars from that party. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking they had people over. They said they always had people over and stuff like that. Oh, thanks, Roger. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you so much. Aw. And Sammy says, Detroit, I've heard anything or haven't heard anything earlier. Someone drove by and posted a picture, not official updates I've seen. Yeah, and it was really hard to find any official updates for today. I found one newsreel that came in like at the last minute for me to grab before I was, done grabbing info for the day. So, yeah, and unfortunately, it doesn't get us any, closer, in my opinion. It does sound familiar, Twitch. It really does. It's, they were playing, and then of course another one in broad daylight or morning light. Michelle says that video she showed earlier, drone shots, and that's right. I remember that wasn't any houses that close by. Okay. So that was the drone footage. So either she lives further than 500 feet or she's a troll, like I am Two Bear says. And I think you might be right, I am Two Bear. And people do that. People will do that. They love to get in the middle of stuff and lie. And then, as a descendant of England and Canada, recognizes common law marriage. So technically boyfriend, but husband. Right. Thanks, Sammy. Yeah, absolutely. And they do that in different places here too. Like different states will, if you've been together for so long, will consider you common law where you're not married, but you might as well be, type of a thing. So, all right, guys, let's watch this third clip and see what we have here.
The search for two missing children in rural Pictou County is now into its 5th day, and there's still no sign of 6-year-old Lily Sullivan and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan. The siblings went missing last Friday morning when it's believed they strayed from their home in Lansdowne Station. CBC's Preston Mulligan joins us now live from the search area with the latest on the efforts. Preston.
Good evening, Tom. Well, as you said, yes, as we near the end of day 5 in the search for these 2 young children, sadly, there is still no good news report. The RCMP held a news conference a couple hours ago to give us an update. Basically, there's not much else to say other than the search for Lily and her brother Jack continues here and around these woods, in these deep woods in the Lansdowne area. Now, RCMP Search and Rescue are still working under the assumption that the 4- and 6-year-old wandered away from the home in Lansdowne, just south of New Glasgow, on Friday morning. Today, some of the family members walked me through into that wooded area directly adjacent to where they live, maybe 20-second walk from the home into the woods. And as you walk into the woods, there's a little, kind of a tree fort, a little lean-to, and that's where the kids would play. And the family around there say they find it very hard to believe that, given how thick the brush is on some of the steep banks around that area, and just the difficulty moving around if you sort of leave that trail, how difficult they find it to believe that they could have gone anywhere deeper than that into the woods.
No idea. I had no idea. I'm still searching every day. I'm waiting for information. I have to let them do a lot of their stuff with the aircrafts and everything else.
Okay, so that's the rundown. 2 toddlers disappear from their home in rural Canada, and that last voice you heard there was their stepfather. Which brings me to one final thing I want to go over before we start analyzing Malaya, and that's how I set my baseline whenever I start analyzing a brand new case. If you've been here for a while, you'll know that I'm a big proponent of Bayesian reasoning. In other words, our baseline is set at the statistically most likely scenario. In the case of missing children, one of the most likely scenarios is that they wandered off and got lost. So any evidence that suggests that theory will weigh heavily right away. But any evidence of something less likely, like a stranger kidnapping or a UFO abduction, will be really hesitant to weigh that evidence very heavily unless it's amazingly convincing evidence. And I know it might sound biased or unscientific, but it's actually one of the best frameworks for making predictions. And based on statistics about missing children, the exacerbating factor of a stepfather rather than a biological father in the home, and the strange statements this mother's making, I'm going into this already suspecting that the children probably wandered off. It might be worse, but I'm going to say probably wandered off, and that they might be lying about it because they were drugged up or neglectful or something of that ilk. All right, without further ado, let's listen.
I'm just staying as hopeful as possible. I want them home. I want to hold them. And I want them home. What happened was we woke up, I heard them playing in the next room beside us, and I was drifting in and out of sleep, and they're not the type of kids that we tell them not to go outside on their own. We always make sure that we're out there with them, watching them, and they happen to just get out that sliding door, and we can't hear it when it opens, and they were outside playing, but we weren't aware of it at the time.
We're off to a bad start, and that's because this mother is doing lots of the things that we've seen verified hoaxers do on the channel. I've put the Spotting Hoaxes card from the Deception deck, my 52 favorite rules for spotting lies and manipulation, on your screen if you want to read all 4, but I'm just going to point out 2 of them right now. First, she's conclusive about how the children left the house, when if her story were true, that they were in and out of sleep, and you can't hear whether or not that door is being opened or closed, she wouldn't be able to know that. She also said that the kids were outside playing. Maybe she's guessing about that stuff or suspects it, but there's no way to state it this conclusively. Unless, of course, she made up that story in her own head. Second, her story is vague. What does drifting in and out of sleep mean? What noises exactly did she hear which let her know that the children were playing in the other room? She didn't even say what the kids' names are. And this is yet another sign of a hoaxer, because hoaxers, especially when they have a co-conspirator, like I think her boyfriend might be, if they actually have guilty knowledge, have to line up their stories over time with themselves and with each other. So the more concrete details they give, the more opportunity for people to catch them in their lies. Or if they're just low IQ, like many of the hoaxers we've analyzed on the channel, they never even think of those details in the first place. All right, let's keep listening, but to be clear, our baseline still hasn't changed.
They happen to just get out that sliding door, and we can't hear it when it opens. And they were outside playing, but we weren't aware of it at the time. And the next thing we knew, it was quiet. And we get up, and I tell him, my partner, Daniel, I tell him, "Do you hear the kids?" And he says, "No." And we get up instantly. We're looking outside. We're looking everywhere, yelling for them. And I instantly just call 911. I just had the instinct I needed to call. They're both really go-lucky children. They're so sweet. They talk to anyone. They'll talk your ear off. They will speak to anyone in a store. Everyone.
I can see why so many of my subscribers commented for me to analyze this case, because we're about to have a royal flush of deception deck cards here.
All right, guys. So royal flush of deception deck cards, right? So let's see. There's a lot more in the statement analysis. So it's the 5th day, right, that we're kind of on now with the search for Lily and Jack, and they live in a place called Lansdowne Station, and so that area is going to be searched high and low by the RCMP. They did a presser and let everyone know that they were heavily searching the wooded areas all around that area. And then also, they were operating under the assumption that Lily and Jack just wandered away. And so, of course, that would be their first area to search, would be that wooded area. Now, there was a tree fort out there that they showed that Lily and Jack used to like to play in. That wasn't really far off or anything like that, but then it's also very treacherous woods as they go down in there. Daniel has said to have been searching every day. And then Deception Detective brings in his baseline, right? And he said, in most cases like this, we can assume that a small child will have wandered off, right? And so that would be our baseline established. He said something that's a little bit more stranger, like a kidnapping or say a UFO abduction, that would be lower on the list. But for all intents and purposes of this analysis, he's more or less saying, okay, let's see if they wandered off, right? So the mother was in and out of sleep, right? So they were in the bedroom, in the room next to them, the children were playing, right? And she woke up to hearing them playing in the bedroom next to them. She says that the children do not go out without them, and they know better than to just go out without anybody watching them out, even in the yard. So that wasn't a regular occurrence, according to the mother. She said they just happened to get out of the sliding glass door. They just happened to get out. So, again, that statement is very strange, right? Because she tells us that they know better than to do that, but they just all of a sudden happened to get out of the sliding glass door, but they couldn't hear it. And again, she offers that information up right away. So Deception Detective says that, this is indicative of the behavior that we see with these verified hoaxers that he talks about on the channel. He says that there may be a co-conspirator, which would be Daniel, right, the partner. He said, and that's why they don't give any concrete details, right, because they're going to have to get their story straight at some point. And if they didn't already get it straight before this, they're kind of in trouble, right, because as soon as this happens, you're going to be watched and, your cell phones will be taken, different things, right? You're going to be looked at. So he said, or excuse me, so the mother says that they were outside playing, but they were not aware of it at that time. So she tells us that the kids were outside playing, but at the time that they were doing this, she wasn't aware of it. So again, going back to what Deception Detective says, basically, hey, sweet Sativa, and hey, K9 Jules, good to see you. So basically, they're saying that they're unaware, right? But they're setting us up to think that they're just playing out there. And whether she's assuming that they were playing at that time or not, because they are kids, right? Kids play. It's unclear. But again, it just kind of goes to there might be a level of deception there. Hey, Holly, yes, good to see you. And he's setting us up for a royal flush. Hey, Cece, good to see you. Thanks for coming in. Oh, the grandmother deleted her Facebook? Oh, Lord. Mom and brother live in the camper, and then they have chickens in the chicken house. Okay, so they do have chickens, Sammy. I was wondering about that because I was like, it looks like a little barn area where they would have animals and stuff, but I didn't see any chickens. I am Two Bear. I am Two Bear says he's so fine. Do wop. I agree. I think most people want to know if Deception Detective is single in our chat. Yeah, he's really easy on the eyes. He's super smart too. I enjoy his commentary. And Michelle says, think she said a 4-year-old still wears pull-ups. So yeah, let's hope they find them soon before wildlife and elements get to these little babies. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Michelle, that's what it's being alleged, is that he was still wearing pull-ups when he's 4. That's what he went missing in: a brown shirt and brown pants with pull-ups, and blue rain boots. They had their rain boots on, both of them, and Lily was wearing a pair of pink boots. And Brock says, has someone said if it was Sebastian? Not yet. We haven't heard yet. And but thank you for asking. Yeah, we're not sure. Oh no, trigger warning. Dee Dee's in the house. Detroit's melting over here. That's funny. Michelle says Biofather has said to be on house arrest, elsewhere, and others have said he has no contact with them. Oh, that's sad, Michelle. Okay, so they're not really worried. He's not worried about them then. Wait, what says I'm 90% sure Lily was mama to Jack? Yeah. Oh, wait, what? Yeah, that's a great point. That's very possible, where she was taking care of him all the time. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'd go with that 90% for sure. Hey, perfectly imperfect boy mom. Good to see you. Oh, I hope you had safe travels. Yeah. Team replay. Thank you for coming in. Thanks so much for being here. I hope you had a good day. I know that kind of takes a lot out of you when you're traveling. Um, no, you're good, Sammy. You're good. A royal flush bingo. Yes, yes. Yeah, they do look alike. They do. Wait, what? Is it me? Doesn't Jack look like Daniel? They do. They do look alike. And I wonder, maybe they were, maybe one of them was his. Thanks, Meg. Thank you. Thanks, Jules. Thanks for being here. It's good to see all you guys coming in. And Social Butterfly says step parent drove down trails. Why immediately drive to look, in my opinion? Yeah, right away he said he was running out to the woods, and then he, at one point, he says getting ahead of the helicopters and things like that, which was kind of weird. Getting ahead of them. That was a weird choice of words, in my opinion. Thanks, Sweet Sativa. Michelle says, with the home and RV on the property with such bad condition, the yard and surroundings, it would be hard for an intruder to get on that property without being seen. I agree, Michelle, and that's how I felt about the Wells property, is that, with the way the driveway was, and, the kind of around all the hollers and different areas, it's a very treacherous wooded area, rural. I agree that it would make it much harder on a property like that for an intruder, and especially with all the people around. Um, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, Social Butterfly. And I am Two Bear says an abduction of 2 kids at one time would be a first that I know of. Well, that is a great point. And also, kids like to kind of squirm and stuff. And if one's taking the brother or the sister, you would think the one would be like hitting them or something like that. You're absolutely right. It would be very difficult to grab up 2 kids at once if it was one abductor, unless there was, like a van or, a driver, and somebody's grabbing these kids up. You're absolutely right. That's a great point. Thank you for your comment. Yeah, it doesn't really make sense, and I'm trying to think in my head if we've ever heard of that before, because usually it's just, one kid. They don't want to take their chances with 2, and then 2 kids might be screaming at the same time, or, you know, um, Oh, yeah, that's a good question too. People were saying there are very few cadaver dogs in Canada. Do you know anything about that, Canine Captain Jules? That's a great question, YouTuber. And Detroit Rock City says, "How do they know what they had on if they didn't see them leave?" Yeah, great point. They didn't wear boots and backpacks to bed. No, they didn't. And that's very strong details of what they were wearing, right? Even down to the strawberries on her backpack, right? I mean, I guess they could say, well, we didn't see the strawberry backpack, and so, you know, we're assuming that she took it with her. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, same with the rain boots, but you're right. The actual clothes they were wearing, because if they were only laying in bed and listening to them play next door in the room, and then they get out, I mean, again, yeah, it just does not add up, does it? Yeah, thanks, Detroit. That's a great point. Are the parents even sure the slider was even shut after the party? That's a great question, Linda. I don't know. That is a great question though. Did somebody leave it open just a tad and then they were able to pull it open all the way without being heard? But see, she already said that. Like she offered that up without even being asked. So, really interesting there. And Canine Captain Jewel says, I know, or excuse me, I don't know about the entirety of Canada, but maybe for Nova Scotia, that could be true. The Canadian Royal Mounted Police does have quite a few. Thank you. Thanks, Jules, for that. Yeah, because it's hard. I mean, they were even saying about the polygraph, how they didn't have polygraphers available. And so somebody was going to be flown in. Um, Yeah, and then you always wonder about maybe, like, people who just have search dogs or retired dogs or something like that. I wonder if they would come out to help, you know? Um, I don't know about the search and rescue groups, though. Yeah, there we go. That's what I was thinking too, Jules. Thanks. Yeah. I don't know about the search and rescue groups, though. They may be limited. Yeah. And I mean, you never know who's available, who's in the area. Canada's huge too, it really is. Yeah. YouTuber says just asking because allegedly they need to fly cadaver dogs in. Well, I think that they should, especially with all of the rough terrain and woods they have to cover. I would think that that would be the best way to kind of knock out that large area. Um, Sweet Sativa says, and we know the little girl has a great set of lungs on her. Right, exactly. And just think of two little ones, just like, especially if you know that, your little brother's being taken or your little sister's being taken or your older sister, either way. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, because I mean, it's hey, Scranton Strangler. It's a totally different country, right? We think of Canada being so close, but it is. It's a completely different place. Um, and of course, we're always like suspicious in true crime, but I was like, oh yeah, sure, you don't have a polygrapher, but really, turns out he's telling the truth. Um, and I'd want them to give me a polygraph. I know they can be nerve-wracking and stuff, but I mean, most of the time, if you didn't have anything to do with it, and you want them to focus on finding the kids, you know, anybody's going to want that. And YouTuber says, thinking on DD said, maybe the parents were neglectful and Lily and Jack did wander off, so the parents are lying in fear of losing custody of their 18-month-old child. That could be very possible, YouTuber. Absolutely. You know, and I think a lot of it too has to do with maybe one parent or another knowing what happened and the other one kind of helping along and going along with it. Could be really possible here too. As in, um, maybe they weren't paying attention, or maybe both of them weren't paying attention and they both don't want to be in trouble. But it seems like as we're going on with this, and we'll see in the clips, there is kind of a rocky relationship there. And in that case, it's a lot easier to kind of get information, especially if there was like a joint effort or, joint neglectful situation, where they were both asleep and they were partying the night before, and then all of a sudden the kids are missing and they're like, oh no. Or if somebody, say the party was Thursday and somebody took the babies overnight, or from the party, they didn't know who all was there. And, it could be very possible that they woke up and Lily and Jack weren't in the house at all. Um, you know, and Sammy says the parents suspect ASD because they don't keep up with the class, maybe NEDD, yeah, often causing delay in toilet training. Yeah, absolutely, Sammy. That's a really great point. If the kids aren't in school and things like that, that doesn't, they may be behind, uh, scholastically or developmentally only because they're not being able to be in school enough, and they're missing so much that they're behind. Yeah, absolutely. And it could have nothing to do with autism spectrum disorder. Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Sammy. I appreciate that because that's true. Um, yeah. When did they go missing? Really? When did they go missing? Really? Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And that's what's really hard about that, about this timeline that we're working with. Um, And Jules says, okay, in an interview, Staff Sergeant Robert McCammon, acting officer in charge, said cadaver canines hadn't been brought in yet 2 days ago, and it was the next step. Oh, thank you. Okay, thanks, Jules. Yeah, okay, so perfect. Yeah. Next step is cadaver dogs. So that was 2 days ago, and then they scaled the search back day 6, I want to say. Don't quote me on that one, but we'll double check it in these clips. Thanks, Jules. Yeah. I am Two Bear said they went missing way before reported. Something's fishy. I'm thinking that's where my brain's going, just letting kind of the facts of the case lead us there. Yeah, I agree. We don't have a proper timeline, in my opinion. Hey, little Miss Sharon, good to see you. And oh, cool. A pizza run. All right. Oh, awesome. I'm so glad you're here. And YouTuber says, thanks, Jules. Wonder what he meant by not brought in yet. Maybe none in Nova Scotia. Yeah. And that could be possible. Just they had to wait for resources to come in. Hey, Mama. Good to see you. Good to see you. And Jules says, nope, they have them. I just found a video of their cadaver canine. Oh, awesome. A GSD named Doc. Oh, cool. He was their first cadaver canine and came on board in 2016. They have several more now. Oh, wow. Awesome. So they've built up their team, their canine team. That is so cool. I love that. The dogs are so awesome. And so are their handlers too, Jules, by the way. You guys are really awesome with the dogs. I'm always amazed by that. Um, ooh, meat lovers. There you go. Pizza run. Detroit says a friend of the stepdad said that the mom would get drunk and beat up the stepdad. Oh no. He would just stand there. Oh no. Oh, Detroit, that's sad. Oh my goodness. Oh. I don't like hearing that. That's awful. So she's mean to him, huh? And Jules says, Lady Freedom, I found a link for one of the cadaver canines. I'll post the video. Thank you so much. That's awesome, guys. Yeah, go check that out. For sure. That's awesome. Thanks, Jules. Yeah. It's important to kind of know, what resources. He's super cute. Of course. They always are too. They're just good boys, good girls. I am Two Bear says, so if a cadaver dog just got there, perhaps they're searching under the trailer. Yikes. Well, That's possible. That's very possible. Absolutely. I am too bear. Pizza for everyone. Yay. Scranton says Detroit Rock City, I'm looking harder at the mom than the dad for now. Yeah, I agree, Scranton. I was getting that vibe too. I was thinking at first, I think I made a comment on Deception Detectives, one of the videos, and I was like, I think they might be both royally guilty, but he didn't do the stepdad's interview yet, because I was still sorry guys, I kicked my chair here, or my table. I wasn't really fully into the case until I kind of started watching, the parents and things like that. So I have to agree. I'm way more leaning towards, the mother had something to do with it, because he seems like he's more sincere. Then again, if he's afraid of her, and guys, I'm not trying to, you know, disparage this man. If he was being hurt by his wife or his common law partner, if you will, maybe he's afraid to say anything, and that's sad, it's really sad for him. And I hope that's not the case. Sammy says the area they lived in is so rural that the kids' school has 86 kids. Oh, wow. And it's 20 minutes by school bus. Wow, 86, huh? Jeez. And I wonder if the truancy officer was ever called to kind of check on the kids and stuff, because that's a lot of days out. Usually, they're going to send somebody by. I think it's like 3 days. YouTuber says Kanan Captain Jules, thanks for all of that. Sorry for all the questions. Yeah, thank you so much, Jules, for that. She says I love talking canines. We appreciate it because it puts it into perspective for us, because we have no idea. Well, most of us. Jules says I love the all black German Shepherd. We deployed with one named Django. Oh, that's my dog's name. And he was a beast if you were the enemy, but a cuddly bear if you were his friend. Aw, they are fierce. The dogs are so useful for so many different things, yeah, the German Shepherds, they're beautiful though. Oh my goodness. Django, I love that. Um, YouTuber wants pepperoni. Pizza and dogs. This is a good live, I'm telling you. I know, right? 86 only. Hey, Alicia Hot Wheels. Alicia Hot Wheels says, I believe something happened on the way to school because of the backpack and the boots. The other kid witnessed it and they thought they'd tell. Oh, okay. Interesting. Well, I noticed Jack had a lot of, and sometimes boys are just rough and tumble, but it seems like he had a lot of bruises and like red marks on his lips. I know sometimes you could get like chapped lips and stuff, but like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm a little worried about Jack because he seems like he's always got something, like maybe somebody popped him one or something, I don't know. It's just like his little lips, there was like red marks on the one. There was a mark right here on his chin, and at first I thought it was a bruise. And then I sent it over to someone. I said, "What does this look like? What do you think?" And they were like, "Oh, it looks like it might be a cigarette burn." And sure enough, if you zoom in on it, it was like you could tell like there was a discoloration in the middle and then around of it. And I was like, well, maybe it's a bug bite, because it looked like a bullseye. Sometimes when you get a tick bite with them living out in the so rurally, I thought maybe was a bug bite. But I don't know. But then I was looking at other pictures and I was noticing, um, marks on his face. So yeah, that's true. Jules says, I think he's also really socially awkward. That's true. I can see that, yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, let's look at these other clips. He handed over everything and volunteered a lie detector test and a drug test. Yeah, she is staying with her mom with the baby and crickets now from her. Right, Detroit. Yeah, and those are the things that I'm weighing too myself, because it's like, what's going on? How come she doesn't want to come out and, I'd be begging, begging, begging and thanking everyone, just the normal things that you see. Um, and just spreading awareness, and not being quiet. Like that's the last thing I'd be, is quiet. Um, Sammy says, so I wonder if that's why they are under the trailer. Maybe the dogs hit there. Absolutely. Yeah. And that could be really, really a strong possibility. Um, yeah, something had to have happened. I don't like this timeline because it doesn't fit, into the series of events here. I have a feeling that's way off. Um, Scranton. Well, and there's nothing wrong with going to a little school. You do get more, you get more attention and things like that. It could be a good thing too, but really, really small, it sounds like. Um, aw, little Miss Sharon. All right, guys, let's look at this next clip. Let's take a look here. I think we're on 4.
Because we're about to have a royal flush of deception deck cards here. So let's just go through them one by one. First of all, we have a temporal lacunae, or a jump through time. And liars often use temporal lacunae like suddenly or I just woke up and noticed, because they want to skip over incriminating parts of their story. Second, we have changing tenses. You may have noticed that she started off telling her story in past tense, as we can expect when someone's recounting something that happened in the past. But as she told her story, all of a sudden she switched into present tense. And this can happen when people are constructing a story in real time or reconstructing a made-up story in real time, rather than recounting actual memories. Finally, we have explanations, and liars often give unnecessary explanations because they know they're lying, so they don't take their believability for granted. In this case, she felt the need to tell us why she called the police, as if her kids being missing wasn't a good enough reason. But beyond the red flags in the deception deck, I don't like some of the other things she's doing here. For instance, she's setting up her and her boyfriend's alibi by telling us that they must have been sleeping at the time. But if she was sleeping, how could she possibly know that he was also sleeping? Couldn't he have been awake and done something to them while she was passed out? She never seems to consider that as an option at all. And this lack of curiosity or suspicion about a non-biologically related father in the household with their children could be explained a lot of ways, but one of those ways could be that she actually knows what happened, so she's not curious about what he may have done. Finally, I don't like how she's leaving all those little breadcrumbs to sort of suggest or imply to us that the kids must have been kidnapped or gone off with a stranger by telling us how talkative they are and all that sort of stuff. It's unnecessary, and it's pretty blatant if that's what she's doing. All right, let's keep watching.
They're so sweet. They talk to anyone. They'll talk your ear off. They will speak to anyone in a store. Everyone. They're just extremely sweet kids. I appreciate the huge search effort going on right now. But we've been pushing for an Amber Alert, which hasn't been issued. Not just that they could possibly be abducted, which it is a possibility that they could have been, but just an alert to let everyone know that they are missing. We had people text me saying that they weren't aware someone else let them know that they were missing, and it would just be nice if everyone could be alerted. We thought maybe that we found tracks, but it's still uncertain. It's been raining and they're probably soaking wet, but with the sun today, I'm hopeful that they are feeling warm. We're all filled with pain and sorrow because we just want them found. We want them home. Everyone loves them. They are definitely verbal, and they do have possible autism, but it's not extreme autism. It's just they have issues with school, and they don't catch up with the other kids. I just want to remain hopeful. But there's always, in a mother's mind, you're always thinking the worst. Last night was one of the worst nights because I didn't have them in their beds. And I don't want to go through that another night without them.
That's the end of the interview. So where are we at right now? Well, we have a mother making statements that sound deceptive and sound like she's trying to cover up some sort of neglect possibly alcohol or drug use. We have a father who's a non-biological father, a stepfather, and we have 2 missing children who we've just learned might have autism. Unfortunately, all 3 are exacerbating factors in child abuse and neglect, and we've seen them in multiple cases we've analyzed on the channel. So if I'm betting right now, I'm betting that the children wandered off while the parents were getting stoned or high. Of course, that will evolve as we analyze more statements.
Outside this Nova Scotia home, a reminder of the heartbreaking absence. 6-year-old Lily and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan missing 6 days now. Their stepfather getting an update from RCMP officers. It's news he says he knew was coming, but didn't want to hear. Police are scaling back the search and rescue of the siblings, with hope dwindling.
Based on the experts and the review of the facts, the inclement weather, the time frames, and their age, the likelihood that they're alive right now is very low.
Breaks my heart.
The 2 kids' stepfather says they went missing last Friday, wandering from home while the parents slept in another room. Since, the RCMP has teamed up with a number of agencies, scouring a 4-square-kilometer area around the home on foot and in the air. An area roughly the size of downtown Halifax, but heavily wooded and filled with downed trees. Terrain difficult to navigate for rescuers, let alone children. So far, not a single sign of the kids has been found beyond a small boot print near the house. Still, the RCMP says a smaller search will go on, with the force's major crimes unit continuing to play an active role. They aren't ruling out the possibility of a crime.
We're going to continue pursuing any leads or information that comes in.
Okay, guys. So, I mean, if it's hard for the searchers to get through the terrain, it's going to be hard for these little ones to get through it. Is a big takeaway from that, in my opinion. But so we start out with tempora lacunae. I hope I said that right. I was practicing before the live, which is a lapse in time, right? So when somebody says suddenly, or I just woke up and noticed, right? That's kind of like a lapse in time where nothing can be explained. And we see that often in these cases. We also see how the mother is changing tenses, and it's in deception detectives' experience and expertise when somebody is reconstructing a statement rather than going off of their memory. So I thought that was really important to point out. And she's also giving explanations, right? Because people who are over explaining, they know that they're lying. And so, of course, they're going to, again, like her statement, she kind of covers her tracks as she says her statements, right? And over explains. So she's giving off explanations because she knows that she's lying. So, deceptive behavior, no doubt. She's also leaving breadcrumbs, right? Like the kids may have been kidnapped. She's talking about how they were talkative, right? She also is setting up, more on the talkative, right? So when she's explaining how the children are talkative, she says that they will speak with anyone at the store, right? And that they were pushing for an Amber Alert, which we all know that signals an abduction. So there's that. She also talks about how she's filled with pain and sorrow and that everyone loves them, right? Instead of saying, I love you so much, she wasn't coming from a place of herself. Again, we're seeing a distancing behavior of everyone loves you instead of her saying, I love you, daddy loves you, whoever stepdaddy is. She also sets up the alibi, right? How does she know that her partner is sleeping if she's sleeping? Another really great point by deception detective. You don't get a whole lot past this guy. Now, this is another strange part of the interview where we hear about a possible autism diagnosis. She says it's not extreme. She says, but it does cause issues with them at school where they don't catch up with others. And that's going back to what we were all talking about, earlier here in the live. there may be a possible autism diagnosis, but there also may be a strong possibility that if the kids aren't going to school daily, then that's why they're falling behind and they're not catching up. And she does use the word catching up with the other classmates, right? So again, I don't know about the autism diagnosis. I think it may be, lazy parenting, in my opinion, neglectful, not wanting to get up and get them ready and off to school, things like that, not helping them with their homework, not being there to be a strong support system, in my opinion. That's what it sounds like. It doesn't sound like the children are autistic. Now, if she would have, brought into play some other maybe social and emotional dysregulation issues, or maybe some different characteristics that we see commonly on the autism spectrum, but for her to say that she thinks that they can't catch up with other kids and they're having issues at school, maybe because they're not attending school regularly. Um, and then she says the worst part about the night before was that she says, quote, "I didn't have them in their beds," end quote. So again, we see these exacerbating factors in the case where we have, um, a step parent in the home. We have possible autism, which again, I don't like that. And then we see the authorities are scaling the search back, right? They decided to scale the search back, and they said the likelihood is low that the children are still alive, but they did search 4 square kilometers around, the home. And so, that's kind of where we're at with that clip. Yeah, talk your ear off. That was another one, huh? Hey, Miss Sarah H., good to see you. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Yeah, I do not like to talk your ear off. Well, and we were saying earlier, it's like one of those things where, you know, there's a couple reasons why kids might do that, right? Maybe they're overly excited or they are talkative as it is, right? Some people will say, that kiddo likes to talk a lot and, what that's just part of their personality, right? But it's a little bit different when we see kids who are being neglected and who want anything but attention because they never receive attention, and so they'll talk to anybody. There's also little kids that, again, like I said, they might just go up to anybody and talk because they're trusting. Kids are very trusting, and a lot of us, have to learn the hard way through life that you can't trust anybody. Terrible moral of the day by Lady Freedom over here. I wrote it down. Little Miss Sharon. Little Miss Sharon says tempura what? It's tempura lacunae. Don't ask me. This is, I'm guessing it's Latin. But yes, this is, Sweet Nothings by Deception Detective. No, I'm just teasing. But, yeah, he knows that when he speaks Latin, we all love it. Alicia says, I would not, or I would go scorched earth if any of my babies, fur or human, went missing. I have zero understanding of a mother that wouldn't. I understand, Alicia. I mean, I feel the same way. And she was very calm and nonchalant in her interview, and that's another red flag to me, just the demeanor. Didn't seem very urgent. The worst part was not having them in their beds. That was a weird statement. That really caught me too. Good night, Anne. Good night. I hope you have a great day tomorrow. And YouTuber says Detroit Rock City, something must have been happening that they aren't aware of. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Passed out, possibly. Yeah. Yeah, or just, kind of groggy or hungover from the day before. Deception Detective I think he said that he was suspecting drugs in the beginning. I think I wrote that down too. But, he suspects that they were too busy, getting, stoned or whatever. But still, I mean, it's no excuse in my opinion, It just really isn't. It's like, I think that the whole story is off somehow, you know. Oh wow, Sammy says, but Halifax, which has 500,000, only an hour and a half and away. Wow, geez. So, and you know, that's a big area. I was wondering that too when he said that, and then especially with it being heavily wooded. So thanks, Sammy, for putting that in perspective. Because wow, you know, again and again, just want them home. Yeah, I just want to hold them. Like that was weird too. I mean, not that a mom wouldn't want to hold her babies. That's not weird, but just the placement and in the context, you know. Um, and IMG Bear says Dee Dee said, how did she know what he was doing while he was passed out, or while she was passed out? Right. Yeah, or while she was asleep, you know, like if say she was still groggy, or she was, you know, because you know all of us, when you first get up, you're not 100% all the way awake, right? Your brain's still kind of waking up, and you're still kind of groggy, you know, waking up. And Chris Watts much exactly, little Miss Sharon. I agree. You know, and it's like I kind of get that, you know, kind of state where you're like, okay, I'm kind of half asleep, right? Um, but even so, how would she know what he's doing if she's still not fully awake and things like that? So, I am Two Bear said, so if they are under the house, someone wouldn't bury them there, right? I mean, I can't believe they would be overlooked. But then again, I don't know what type of resources they actually had at the house, or if they were deploying deploying resources. I wanted to say researchers for some reason. Resources, you know, around the area, you know, because it's so wooded. It's like super heavily wooded, you know. YouTuber says Detroit Rock City, same. His methods are controversial, but he's dealing with dogs whose owners are step away from giving their dogs to shelters. He trains his own dogs from birth very gently. Oh, that's awesome. And Detroit Rock City says, yes, it's very strange that they told her to leave her baby. I was like, what the? Yeah. Weird, huh? It is weird. It is. And why'd they make her leave the house and not the Daniel, you know? I would think the dogs would sniff out if under the trailer. Yeah, I would think so too, little Miss Sharon. I would think so too. Yeah, absolutely. And Scranton Strangler says, K9, is that like LE telling CP not to give details of his whereabouts? Oh no. Oh yeah, you know, that's a good point, Scranton. That is a good point. He occasionally has pups available. Aww. I heard it was CP that told her to leave, or CPS that told her to leave. Yeah, that's what they were saying in this statement here that I have. In this statement, it says that, you know. And basically because there was a lot of rug paraphernalia, you know, in the house. But it doesn't say that there was anything going on, but then I'm hearing, and it's being alleged that, you know, there was domestic, you know, situations going on, you know, but not toward the wife, toward the husband. Hey, Kathy Bartholomew, good to see you. Little Miss Sharon says, is it me, or if my child was missing, I would be a mess. Yeah. Yeah, I would be too. Here are all the parents of the missing, so normal looking. You know, and that's the biggest red flag for me too, is, you know, not that you want to see, or not that everybody's going to be going up there and, you know, I mean, obviously people understand they're on camera, they're holding back emotions. I can see that, but a lot of us, I think, wouldn't be able to even contain ourselves. And when we see them being so nonchalant, it is off, you know. Jill says, don't even get me started on CP. I know, right? Exactly. Michelle says, usually CPS will make a guilty party in some situations leave on what CPS was told, so might be the case where mom was told to leave and not Daniel. Well, and that's true if she was maybe, if they were afraid that she was, had a history of hurting Daniel or something like that. That's very true. But, why wouldn't they allow for Daniel to keep the baby then if, you know, hmm. Yeah, he even offered to do a rug test to clear himself. What if so that was her and yeah, and he was the one trying to hold it together. Well, and see, yeah, it says that she also took one too. So I wonder what type of paraphernalia they found in the home. I'm curious, um, because, nowadays you just don't know what kind of stuff you're getting. And what if you got, even the most harmless of all, which people would argue would be like the green, right? And then, but what if it had something in it or something? Or what if one of the people that came to the party brought something into the house and the kids got exposed to it? Sammy says his house and property, I believe she took 18-month-old or 16, whatever. Read an article about generational trauma and her father being charged with abusing her mother, Jack and Lily's grandparents. Oh, I see. Oh, okay. So, yeah. And again, these are the kinds of things that we kind of see, the overflow of what's kind of going on in the whole picture, I am too Bear says, but it doesn't say if her rug test came back clean. That's true. That is true. I am too Bear. I haven't heard anything about that either. And this is all the statement that, was said. That's so true. Jewel says, Lady Freedom, well, CP also offered to do a Nancy Grace polygraph and look how that went. Exactly. Yeah. He said, name the time and place, ma'am. And then, he never showed up. Oh, Lord, that's so true. Sammy says, because Dan's mom and brother on the property, too. What if it was the kids getting into the rug? Yeah, I'm thinking so, Sammy. That's kind of what I kind of concluded just sitting here talking with you guys. I'm wondering about that now, too. And then reading this statement and, because if they had a party, it's not like people are going to be like, hey, I'm coming in here and I have this, this, and this on me. They might not have even known that somebody had brought rugs into their house, not to sound naive or anything. Maybe they did know. And maybe that's why the person was there, or, it was a dealer or something. No, you're right in the bushes. No. It's yeah. So like paraphernalia isn't rugs themselves. It's something that you would use to do the rugs, So like an apparatus, a smoking apparatus, or and any of those things. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it could have been as simple as something like that, or it could have been a spoon, or it could have been a needle, it could have been, we don't know. Yeah, that's true. That is very true. Detroit says, well, they did make Leilani leave and Jen Soto. Yeah, absolutely. So they must know kind of who's who and maybe what people took part in what. Oh gosh, Sammy, isn't that so true? Yeah. F only takes an invisible amount, a kid holding, yeah, a pipe and pretending. Yeah, absolutely. And it could happen so quickly, just like that, Or they were walking by and, oh gosh, there just could be so many things that can happen like that. Like you said, it's such a small amount of it. It doesn't take much, So yeah, that's a great point. And Stratton says, I'm thinking CP and KP are breathing a sigh of relief thinking finally the focus is shifting off Sebastian. No, never, Scranton. I'll tell you, we did in the beginning, we talked about Sebastian. And there's a lot of similarities in this case that we see even with, Katie's statements. But I see what you're saying. Yeah. Hey, Haunting Hope. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for the green hearts. Oh, gosh, Scranton. But yeah. Ugh. Hey, KJ Mac. Hey, Lori. Good to see you. All right. Well, you're well rested. We need your help over here. We're trying to find these two little ones. Yeah, not letting that go. Yeah. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get back down here to these clips. I think we're on 5 yet.
Since the kids went missing, their stepfather says he's hardly had any contact with their mother. She took their 1-year-old to stay with her mother after a fight between the families broke out. He says people accuse him of being involved in the children's disappearance. When contacted, the mother and her family only told CBC News police advised them not to speak to media.
I'm absolutely exhausted at this point after going through 6 days of virtual hell. It's absolutely crazy. So I'm just fighting for Lily and Jack.
It's a case that has really captured the attention of this community and beyond, with many holding out hope for a much better conclusion.
When the RCMP says they're scaling back their search, what exactly does that mean?
Well, the first major thing is reducing the amount of resources on the ground, so personnel, but also equipment. The RCMP says it's also zeroing in on specific places they have already searched to ensure nothing was missed, and police say they are considering bringing in cadaver dogs. That's something that people are hoping won't be necessary.
All right, Sarah Levitt in Lansdowne Station, Nova Scotia tonight. Thank you.
Nova Scotia's RCMP has scaled back its week-long investigation for 2 missing children.
We're transitioning from a full-scale search to searches of more specific spaces that have already been searched by our teams. We're not packing up, and we're not giving up. Our investigation is broad, and it won't end until we know where Lily and Jack are and can bring them home.
6-year-old Lily and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan were reported missing on Friday, May 2nd. The children's mother and stepfather believe the two either wandered from their home in Lansdowne Station in Nova Scotia. Helicopters, drones, and tracking dogs have been used in the search, but no signs of the children have been found. So to explain more about this ongoing investigation, I'm joined this morning by Chris Lewis. He's CTV's public safety analyst and former OPP commissioner. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Anne-Marie.
There's so many questions still around both this investigation and this mystery around what happened to these 2 young children. Yesterday, the RCMP announcing they've scaled back their search. They said they're going to be circling back on areas that have been looked at before. So what does that tell you, this move signal, at this stage of the investigation?
Well, yeah, thanks for having me, Anne-Marie. There's a couple of things at play here. Either the police know more than we do, which is quite likely, particularly from an investigative perspective, things they're not saying. It was very clear yesterday in the press conference that the staff sergeant in charge of the investigative side of this said there's things he couldn't say. At the same time, it's very, very intense and very thick area that they're searching, very difficult to traverse, even for trained adults, let alone children. So they've obviously made the decision that they don't believe the kids have got further than their perimeter, the area they've already searched. So they want to go back and research it. And he also specifically said there's areas that they want to revisit. Mm-hmm. So why is that? It's disturbing to me that they think the children may not be alive, but the RCMP are really good at this, big searches and investigations, and so they know something we don't, and we have to trust them that hopefully these kids will be found alive, and they'll, if possible, they will do so.
Is it possible one of the areas they're going to go back and research is the children's home and the property surrounding?
It could well be. It could be specific areas in that turf that maybe there's water, culverts and things like that. I don't know. I'm only guessing here. But they're pretty careful to how they worded it all, and which makes me think, once again, from an investigative perspective, they know something we don't, which is almost always the case. But the investigation, the search, always happen in parallel. But in this case, it appears that it seems to be narrowing down to a point that we're going to know something soon, and fingers crossed it's good news, but they're not holding out a whole pile of hope at this point, unfortunately.
It's interesting that your experience and instinct tell you that they're narrowing in on something soon. One thing else that stood out was that major crimes is still part of this investigation. They were at that press conference on Wednesday. What does that say, that this is a search and rescue / search recovery, but also that major crimes is involved?
Well, major crimes would always be involved with missing children, because either they're lost, which is certainly what they've been hoping to be the case, and then find them alive, or they've met with foul play in some way. And there's a couple of different avenues that could go, either a stranger abduction or someone that is known to them. And so major crime would always be following that up until they really have proof one way or another as to what's happened to these kids. So that's not uncommon at all.
During that press conference yesterday, police said that the likelihood of the children being alive was very low. That stood out to me, and you mentioned it as well. When one officer was asked at how they arrived at that conclusion, he only offered scientific methods. What does that mean?
Well, based on probabilities, previous searches, a lot of data that's been gathered over the years, and just experience of these searchers and the search masters, they made a determination that they don't think these kids could have got out of where they are. So that being the case, and having the fact they've been all through there, and some weather issues, although the weather's not all that bad, they've determined there's no way that they could be alive in their view.
Okay, guys. So, again, that's really grim. But at this point, of course, it's just, they just don't think that they could have gotten any further than that certain perimeter that they established. And, I'd have to say that they're probably correct. Oh, thanks, Lori. Thank you so much. And, again, they say that, the mother has gone to stay with her mother with their little child. In this news clip, it says, 1-year-old child. We've heard that the child's probably maybe 16 months old to 18 months old. But either way, another little baby, right? People are accusing Daniel within the family. And so he's, out telling the news that he is fighting for Lily and Jack. The RMCP was zeroing in on certain places. They were considering bringing in the cadaver dogs, but then they also ended up scaling the search back from a full-scale search. And they also wanted the public to know that the investigation is still broad and that they aren't giving up. And, it was mentioned too that typically these investigations run parallel, right? So they're going to be searching, ground, air, foot, everywhere that they can search, but they're also going to be investigating alongside that, right? Which is, a good practice in my opinion, without me being an expert myself. And then, of course, they're going to keep some of the information that they have close to the vest because they don't want anybody to get tipped off. Rough terrain, again, we're dealing with rough terrain, and then they don't think the kids could have gone further than the established perimeter. RMCP knows more, right? And then they were talking about, then they're going to give out to the public, of course. And then they were also talking about revisiting specific areas and narrowing everything down to a point. And this expert thinks that that's exactly what they're doing, right? Is narrowing everything down to a certain point. And he mentioned the involvement of the major crimes unit. He said, there's only a couple of different scenarios that they're looking at here, which would be maybe a stranger abduction or an abduction by someone known to them, or they walked off, right? But they're basing these theories that they have, on probabilities, statistics from different cases in the past and that sort of thing. So, looks like we got pizza. Little Miss Sharon. Let's see here. the police are using statistics and probability in their assessments. Absolutely, KJ Mack. Thanks for being here and thanks for that comment. Yeah, and they're going to do that. They're going to look back historically and see if they can compare any other cases. And we do that too a lot on the YouTube streets. Doing this, kind of giving out different examples of different cases that it reminds us of. I mean, this is really reminiscent of the first 7 days in the search for Sebastian Rogers, in my opinion. Just looking back on some of the resources that were utilized, they were telling the public to kind of stand down and wait for the experts and the searchers, because it was a very calculated search and they wanted to maintain kind of that level of knowing where everyone was, and they didn't want people going out and searching in the woods when there wasn't when there's safety concerns involved. They also had wet weather, things like that to consider. In the bushes says mob crew had better pics of the fence tonight. Take a look at those pics. I will. In the bushes. Thank you. I love mob crew. I always try to catch them when I can. And in the bushes says those kids for sure could walk right out of somebody, could walk right in. Yeah, I agree. I mean, if we look, I have a few pics. Let me take a look here. So here's one aerial shot of the property. And I mean, there's a couple of fences and things like that, but kids know how to get around stuff like that. Oh, sorry, that's not it. And then there's another look here. And then we see the road is right there. The road is right there, and that is a straight path. And of course, I'm sure that's the path that they use to get to their school bus and things like that, Aw, good night, Kathy. Thank you for being here. You're not a party pooper. Good night. Sleep well. If only Ellie had been more forthright with that in Sebastian's. I agree, KJ Mack. That is such a great point. That is such a great point. I mean, we probably wouldn't be here, at this point, in my opinion, had law enforcement been more forthright. There are 2 totally open spaces on the driveway side. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, they're wearing their little rain boots. So, of course, their boots would kind of keep them. I mean, I think they'd be able to walk around over there in their boots and things like that. If they were walking on the main road, I would think that somebody would see them, but I don't know how much traffic that road actually gets. And that sort of thing. But, of course, they decided, right around the same time as they did in Sebastian's case, to scale the search back and to just pinpoint and research certain areas. And we saw that in Sebastian's case too. They decided to go back over and comb over the areas that they had already been in. Let's go ahead and watch this next clip here.
They've determined there's no way that they could be alive in their view, which is very sad. But at the same time, I've seen searches where adults have been missing for weeks in similar weather and found alive. So you can never say never. And the fact that they're leaning that way causes me even more concern.
One last question for you. The parents say they believe the children were abducted. Police say they don't have any evidence to suggest that. So then what options are left?
Well, why are the parents saying that? It would be the first question from the investigators. What makes you believe that? Because if they are, then the police want to know that. The stepfather said very clearly he's been offered he offered to have polygraphs, and he's given them everything. So there's quite an investigation going on around the family. I'm not suggesting there's anything untoward there, but police are obviously following that part of it very closely, and hopefully they'll come up with something soon. This is just a tragedy extraordinaire.
Heartbreak for the family and the community and everyone involved. Chris Lewis, CTV's public safety analyst and former OPP commissioner. Thank you for your time and your expertise this morning.
Thank you, Anne.
Todd, it's been 1 week. 7 days since 6-year-old Lily and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan disappeared, last believed to have wandered into the woods behind me. And despite an intense 6-day search, there's still no sign of them. They were seen last Friday morning. For 6 days, there were boots on the ground, drones and helicopters in the sky. At a nearby RCMP detachment, the community has built a memorial with flowers and stuffed animals. People here are holding on to hope, and so is the family.
The last of RCMP in the area that I've seen, they were at Lansdowne Lake, and they told me that they scoured the lake, divers, and sonared the lake, and there's no evidence at all. If they were in this area, we would have found them. My family's still searching.
At one point, 160 people were out here searching. That help is gone, but the family isn't giving up. On Wednesday, RCMP insisted the search is ongoing. The family says this has been an extremely tough time, and on top of everything else, the rumors on social media has made it even more difficult.
You said they're flying in someone to do a polygraph test. Is that on you?
That's not just on me, but on everyone. That's what I asked for. I asked for that so early on, and there's not many places that do it in Canada, so they're flying somebody in.
Why do you think you need to do that? Do you think they don't believe you?
I think their side of the family doesn't believe me, and I just want to clear it up for everyone, not just the people online making crazy accusations.
That's Daniel Martel, and I think he knows more about the disappearance of his missing stepchildren than he's letting on. And it's not just because he's somehow able to dismiss every online accusation, including those against the mother, who's statistically the most likely culprit except for himself, as crazy. So in today's video, let's analyze that recent interview and one of his earliest interviews and count all the contradictions and red flags. Even if you're familiar with this case, you might not be up to date with the most recent important developments. So before we grab our deception decks and start analyzing Daniel, here's a quick recap.
4 days into the search for his missing stepkids, Lily and Jack Sullivan, Daniel Martel is pleading with the public to keep their eyes peeled. Martel confirmed that when the 2 children went missing from the home behind me, Lily was wearing a pink shirt and pink rain boots. She was also carrying a white backpack with strawberries on it. Martel says although he didn't see Jack that morning, he is believed to be wearing a brown shirt, brown pants with a pull-up diaper on underneath, and blue rain boots with dinosaurs on them. According to Martel, his side of the family are currently the only ones at ground zero after Lily and Jack's mother left the county Saturday. But still, he remains, begging anyone with answers to come forward and bring his children home safe.
This is my third video about this case, and every time I play a news clip to set the table for new viewers, there's another glaring red flag. And at this point, it's a Russian parade. First, we have Jack and Lily, who were reported missing on a Friday, but we've since learned that they were out of school the entire week. We have Daniel, a non-biologically related adult male, in the house of small children, which is heavily correlated with neglect. As of yesterday, we have the police winding down their search for Jack and Lily, suggesting that they have reason to believe that they won't be found alive. And finally, we have the biological mother fleeing the area while her kids are still missing, suggesting she has reason to suspect that too. I won't rehash every red flag from those videos. I'll link them at the end so you can check them out after this. For now, here's a quick clip from the last one because it's important to the analysis we're going to do today. Innocent parents tend to do 7 things when they have the opportunity to get on TV. For instance, parents of missing children, if they're innocent, if they actually have no idea what happened to their kid, talk about their kid in the present tense. Secondly, we can expect them to be cooperative. So if the police or the media are asking them questions, they answer fully and candidly. Third, innocent parents are inconclusive about what happened if there's no evidence to suggest one scenario over another. In this case, if they actually found 2 boot tracks showing the kids walked into the woods, there's no way to say for sure that they must have been kidnapped or that an animal dragged them off or any other scenario. They should be considering all possibilities. And that brings me to the 4th item on the checklist. If all possibilities are open, a kidnapping is also open. So typically, innocent parents look into camera and beg any kidnappers or anyone who might have their kid to please return them. Finally, we can expect innocent parents of missing children to directly ask the audience watching on TV for help because that's the only point of doing the interview, to get help, to get information out there. If they do anything other than that, like try to push a narrative or try to construct their own alibi, we need to be suspect about that. That's the rundown of my missing child presser checklist, and those are the 7 things we're going to listen for Daniel to do in these interviews or not do, along with any signs of deception or leakage.
Okay, guys, so, there's just 7 criteria that Deception Detective goes over, right? And we'll kind of go over those a little bit here. But, the expert was saying that the RCMP should never say never. And I agree. I mean, miracles happen all the time. Keep the faith. But they're under, the assumption with more information than we have that Lily and Jack, there's a strong possibility that they are no longer with us, and they're really leaning towards that they aren't alive. And he brought up a really good question to ask, even this Daniel, the stepfather, or the mother's husband or boyfriend. What makes you believe that the children were abducted? What would make you believe that? And I think that would be a really strong question to ask, and it would probably tell us what the mother is actually thinking just by asking her that question. So I would love to know, why does she believe that? Why does she think that somebody abducted them? And then also, we're 7 days in, and there's still talk that they maybe have just wandered into the woods, but they were last seen last Friday morning. And, the neighbors are putting memorials up for the kids. The stepfather says that they have scoured the lakes with divers and sonars, and they had sonar technology, and that they had 160 people at one point searching for the kids. Then Daniel goes on to say that someone is flying in to give a polygraph, and the news reporter asks, are they giving you a polygraph? And he said, everyone. He said he would really like to have a polygraph, and he's been asking for everyone to take one. But he says that the mom's side doesn't believe him, doesn't believe that he wasn't involved, right? He says that he didn't see Jack that morning, but he did see Lily, right? And I think that that's odd right there, because he does describe what Lily was wearing and also what Jack could allegedly be wearing. But how would he know that if he wasn't around that morning? He didn't see them that morning. He was sleeping, or he was in and out of sleep. So one thing that Deception Detective brings up is that the children were out of school. 2, that Daniel is not a biological father, and so many times that leads to neglect in the home. And also that that they're not alone, right? So there was those 3. Now, looking into this, I will just wait to kind of go into these criteria before we watch the next clip, or our last clip. But I want to see what you all think of these clips that we just watched. And little Miss Sharon. KJ Max says oh, sorry, I already read that one. And KJ Max says, again, there is no evidence at all. He stated that about the lake search. That's weird. Yeah, I always find it strange too. Good catch there, KJ Max, because I was thinking that earlier when I was listening to the interview too. It's always strange how they use the word evidence, right? Like, no evidence. To me, that kind of screams like guilty, and I don't want to say that, because they're all innocent until proven guilty, right? But it just seems that way when somebody says no evidence, right? As if they're expecting some evidence to pop up. But yet, if you don't know anything about a crime happening, then why would there be evidence? It's just weird that they would choose the word evidence and then, like you said, say it like that. No evidence at all. Detroit Rock City says Elise L.E. there seems to be right on top of things a lot more than Tennessee, in my opinion. I agree. We see them, making sure that the parents are not able to corroborate stories together and things like that. They're separating people. They're taking precautions for the other child that's involved. We don't see that happening with Faith, in my opinion. So absolutely, Detroit, I agree. It's different for sure. Yeah, great point. And In the Bushes says, nope, they went to school Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday was a holiday. Oh, okay. So they went to school on Monday and then Tuesday and Wednesday was a holiday. Yeah, see, and I know that he said that they weren't there all week. And I see that's what I heard too. Lori says lots of red flags. Yes, absolutely. Lots and lots of red flags. Yeah. Yeah, so very many. And Detroit says, is there a door on the other side of the trailer in the front? Oh, that's a good question. A door on the other side of the trailer. I don't know if I have a picture of that other side. See, I have that one, but I don't have the other side of it. These are the only pictures that I pulled in. But we'll have to look and see. Because see, that's a closer up look of their barn. There's the door they went out of. Yeah, see, I don't have that other side of there. It looks like a great big camper though. Hey, Tony Fire, good to see you. Thanks for coming in. KJ Max says if the RCMP suspected abduction, then they would not have said that about the possibility of them being alive. I agree. That's a really strong point, KJ Mac. I mean, I don't think that they would have worded it that way either, because you don't know. Somebody could be keeping them someplace, or they could be being, teed or something like that, so you never know. Yeah, that's a great point. Hey, Tony Fire, good to see you. Good to see you. Love and peace to you too. So let's watch this last clip. But before we do, we'll just go over the criteria. So one would be that an innocent parent would talk in the present tense, right? Not in the past tense. Two, they would be cooperative, right? Fully answering questions, candidly answering questions, right, to law enforcement and the media. Number three would be open to consider all possibilities and scenarios. Number four would be the possibility of a kidnapping being on the table, right? They would beg for the safe return of their child. Number five, they would ask the audience for help, because that's the only point of even having the interview, right? Or doing a press conference would be to ask the public for help. And then number seven, number six would be the bio mom flees. Number seven, they don't push their own narrative or construct an alibi. And that's a really big one in this case that I see, is that they're pushing a narrative and they're constructing an alibi. And honestly, I can see that in Sebastian Rogers' case as well. We also saw the bio mom fleeing. We also saw how the Proud Feet weren't candidly answering questions. We never saw them pleading. So all of these would really fit into, and I'm sure he's done this, on Sebastian's case, but, it's just kind of making me think back to, on all of these, talking in the past tense. I've heard them do that, not being cooperative, that sort of thing. So we're kind of looking for those elements here. And
not do, along with any signs of deception or leakage. So without further ado, let's watch the interview he did 3 days ago, and then we'll watch the one I played in the intro, which he did 24 hours ago.
We were searching. We covered everywhere possible. Even in the first day, we did. Even with me running through the woods, I was ahead of the helicopters and ahead of the drones and stuff like that. Screaming as loud as I can, until my throat hurt. Running through water that was up to my waist. And as soon as I got back, I wasn't allowed back in the woods until a man dressed in a military outfit said I could go back into the woods.
4 days into the search for his missing stepkids, Lily and Jack Sullivan, Daniel Martel is pleading with the public to keep their eyes peeled, but he has begun to lose hope they are anywhere in the vicinity.
They hate being wet and cold, so they immediately would have came right back into the house. The only two prints are right beside the house facing the road, and then that's it.
Martel wants the search to be extended to include provincial borders in case the children were abducted. a reality he says is becoming more and more likely.
Post any officers they can get at the New Brunswick border, PI border, and get them at every airport possible.
Martel confirmed that when the two children went missing from the home behind me, Lily was wearing a pink shirt and pink rain boots.
As I said in my last video analyzing Daniel, he's actually doing a lot of the things on my missing child presser checklist correctly. For instance, in this interview, he's allowing for multiple possibilities. Maybe the kids wandered off, or maybe they were abducted, but he's not allowing for every possibility. And when I say that, I mean he's not suspicious of the mother. And when I said that, I got lots of comments, I'm assuming from you subscribers, saying, hey, DD, do you really expect these two parents to start suspecting each other or bashing each other on TV? And my answer is yes, that's what innocent people do, because all options are on the table until proven otherwise, even suspecting your spouse. And it's not at all unique. We see it all the time on the channel. For example, with Gannon Stouch's mother, Kyron Harmon's mother, or Sebastian Rogers' father. In fact, as we saw in the intro, we're even starting to see signs of it in this case with Daniel. He didn't just say he wants to be polygraphed to exclude himself, he wants everyone to be polygraphed. But before we get too excited about his prospects of being innocent, we still have to finish watching this old interview from 3 days ago. So let's see what else he says here.
He also refuted the claim that the two children are nonverbal, saying while they are on the autism spectrum, they are quite trusting and say hi to everyone. According to Martel, his side of the family are currently the only ones at ground zero after Lily and Jack's mother left the county Saturday. But still, he remains, begging anyone with answers to come forward and bring his children home safe.
Anybody who has any information, or you think you've seen something or hear something, or any messages from friends about hearing something, just contact your local police services. Anything, guys, anything.
It's the end of that interview, and as you can see, Daniel asked for help, which is a great sign, but it doesn't outweigh all the suspicious stuff, like him not suspecting the mother at all after she picked up sticks and left town while her kids might still be out in the woods. And then not only do we have a contradiction about the children's talkativeness, remember initially they were supposedly nonverbal, now we have him telling us how they say hi to everybody and they're super talkative. Coincidentally, or maybe not coincidentally, the mother said the same thing, which makes me think that this contradiction is a contradiction of convenience. Here's how I explained it in my video analyzing the mother.
We're looking outside, we're looking everywhere, yelling for them, and I instantly just call 911. I just had the instinct I needed to call. They're both really go-lucky children. They're so sweet. They talk to anyone. They'll talk your ear off. They will speak to anyone in a store. Everyone.
I don't like how she's leaving all those little breadcrumbs to sort of suggest or imply to us that the kids must have been kidnapped or gone off with a stranger by telling us how talkative they are and all that sort of stuff. It's unnecessary, and it's pretty blatant if that's what she's doing. To be clear, I think the mother, Malaya, was definitely pushing a narrative when she was going on and on about how talkative the kids are, because it was unprompted, and for such a brief interview, it took up a lot of time when it had nothing to do with getting people to help find where her children are now. It was strictly theory pushing, which is the red flag for a hoaxer. Remember, they get on TV to push a theory or to build their alibi. Innocent parents get on TV to ask for help. As far as Daniel goes, I don't know why he's saying it. Maybe they scripted that they were going to say this beforehand, so they're on the same page. I'm not quite ready to go all in on him, even though I'm ready to go all in on the mother. So let's see if this most recent interview tips the scales.
You said they're flying in someone to do a polygraph test. Is that on you?
That's not just on me, but on everyone. That's what I asked for. I asked for that so early on, and there's not many places that do it in Canada, so they're flying somebody in.
Why do you think you need to do that? Do you think they don't believe you?
I think their side of the family doesn't believe me, and I just want to clear it up for everyone. Clear it up for everyone, not just the people online making crazy accusations and everything else.
Alright, so that's the clip, and I'm actually happy to see that things are breaking down between them, because it could suggest that Daniel's innocent. Or if they're both guilty, I'm glad they're turning on each other. Finally, I'll wrap up this video the same way I wrapped up so many others like Don Wells and Chris Proudfoot. Daniel, if you're open to an interview, contact me through the DD forum. At the very least, I'll get your story out to a bunch of new people. At the very best, if I'm satisfied with your answers, I'll be your biggest advocate on YouTube. If you want to continue this series, let me know by liking, commenting, and sharing. Till next time, stay true.
Okay, guys. So, there's the analysis there. So, we're looking for those criteria again, just to make sure that we're seeing the more normal aspects of what a parent would do when they have a missing child, right? Without deception or leakage. So, one thing that I found to be odd about Daniel's statement is that he said he was running in the woods ahead of the helicopters and drones. So he also said he was in the woods, his throat hurt, he was screaming for the kids, and then he was talking about how he was in waist deep water. Again, just kind of things that you wouldn't normally expect to hear, especially a guy, complaining about those things like that, right? He's out there looking for the kids. You would think that would be at the forefront of his mind, and maybe it is. But I also thought it was kind of strange. Um, he also says that the kids hated being wet and cold, right? And that was another thing, in the Sebastian Rogers case, that Sebastian didn't like to be dirty. He didn't like to go without shoes. Yet here they are. We're expected to believe that they were out in the woods where it's cold and wet. Daniel does look at multiple possibilities, but he doesn't allow for the possibility that Malaya, the children's mother, could have been involved, right? So he's leaving that one out. And, you know, he's not suspecting Malaya, or he's not verbalizing that he's suspecting Malaya of doing anything. But I thought it was funny because deception detective right here, he says, do I expect these people to come out and accuse each other? Yes, because that's what an innocent person would do. If, just put it this way, if you didn't know what happened to your kiddo, and the only other person in the house was your significant other, and you know that you didn't do it, then who does that leave, right? It's just kind of like, who drank all the milk and only left this much in the container. And then it's like, if you didn't do it, then the only other person in the house could have done it, right? So it's just one of those things. And then it is open for Daniel, right? When he's questioned about the polygraph, he says that he wants everyone to take it, so he does leave that open. He says everyone. He also says that the children are not nonverbal, that they say hi to everyone. Daniel and his family are the only ones left at ground zero, and Daniel is asking for help. Mom did pick up, Malaya, the children's mother, did pick up and leave town. And then it's also interesting that she would do that when her children are out there somewhere, when she thinks that they're out, right, that they wandered off. So really, really strange, behavior. KJ Maxx says, me running, me wet, me sore throat, me. Exactly. And that's a huge red flag, right? Because he's complaining and complaining and complaining and not thinking about, right, it's me, not what about Lily? How is Lily feeling? How is Jack feeling? They must be so scared. They must be lost, something like that. Absolutely. That is a huge red flag, the me's. And I Am Two Bear says, a helicopter is so loud it would have drowned out any yelling he did. Well, absolutely. And he said he was like deliberately trying to stay ahead of them, which I don't see how he was able to do that either. But why would you want to stay ahead of them? Why wouldn't you want to kind of follow after them? I would think that you'd want to kind of recheck what they've checked, or, because you're on the ground and they're in the air, right? So again, that is, thanks, I Am Two Bear. That's another, contradictory or weird statement, and I don't know if Daniel is, innocent or guilty in this. I don't know if Malaya is innocent or guilty, but I do think that, there's some reasons to side eye these two, even Daniel at this point. Detroit Rock City says, if the mother has a history of being violent drunk, maybe she snapped on the kids. KP has the same history, allegedly. That's a good point. Something could have happened where there was an accident or, an incident, right? Like maybe because again, there were several of those pictures where I saw, little Jack had some bruising and redness on his face, some marks on his lips. I mean, again, boys can be really rough and tumble, and there was a lot for him to do out in the woods. He might have just been a rough kiddo and was accident prone, as they say. But a lot of times in these cases, and especially now that they're missing, I think it's really important to re-examine pictures where you do see bruising and things like that, because you're right, Detroit, if she's violent, she could have really hurt the little guy. They're tiny little people. Here, I'll show you. They're so adorable and little. Both of them are tiny little things. Oh, no worries, Jules, thanks for coming back. Yeah, so I mean, they're little, and 4 and 6. um and they said that they were looking out, right? They were looking outside, and when even when Malaya is explaining, what happened when she discovered they were missing, she says, "We were looking outside and I just had to call 911 because it was an instinct to call." Instead of just saying, "And then I called 911 and, they arrived," but she's offering up way too much information and over explaining there too. Um, you know, we we were looking outside, and then it was my instinct to call. So she is definitely suggesting or implying, and she's leaving breadcrumbs. She's theory pushing. She's alibi building. There's a lot of red flags that we see according to what we were supposed to be, looking for. Um, I'm side eyeing the mother as well, Lori. Yeah, absolutely. And it's not to be, mean or anything, or, overly suspicious, in my opinion, because it's one of those things where we know that they couldn't have gotten too far. And that's even what the authorities are saying there. They couldn't have really gotten that far, but yet they have somehow, and they can't find them. And it's just not adding up. And then we hear a mother that just leaves the area of where her children are. And now, arguably, maybe she was meant to leave. Maybe they had her leave, because of a history. Like Detroit was saying, I'm not 100% on kind of the history there. But if they found that, it was safer or more secure for her to be at a different location than Daniel, then I think that's why they made that decision. Um, KJ Maxx says, "Do we know what time they called? Technically, one child was homesick but playing outside." Right. And that's the thing, too. I don't know exactly what time they called. I just know it was in the morning. But, again, we don't know if that's actually when they were discovered missing, or if they were, if something else happened and then that's when they decided to call. But I'd really like to get a time on that too. So I'll have to look and see if I can't get a definitive time. And that's always an issue that we have too, KJ Mack. I love that you brought that up. We always have this issue of time. Like even with Candace Wells, she talks about how she's really bad with time, and I'm not really sure because I'm really bad with time. But it's like, you do know what time Summer typically wakes up, because she would say, "Oh, she wakes up between this time, this time, this time. Sometimes it's 9, 10, 11, if 12 if I let her." But you don't know specifically that morning what time you woke her up, even though you woke her up earlier than just allowing her to sleep till whenever. It's always something like that, where there's always these issues with a timeline or time frame. Um, In the bushes says, "I'm not going to say there are one or two things parenting wise they could improve, but everything is on the table still for me." Yeah, absolutely. It's still very new in the investigation, even. And, like we were just saying too, we don't have a proper time frame. We really don't have a good idea of what days the kids were even in school, or what days they were missing. If one of them, because I didn't know one of them was supposed to be staying home that day again. Just a lot to consider. But and I appreciate all of your guys' insight, because it is so new and everything's on the table for me as well. I don't like hearing the authorities say that they don't really think that they could have made it this long, or that they're no longer with us, something like that. I hate hearing that. Um, well, that's absolutely true. KJ Maxx says if it was late morning, I find that even more disturbing. Absolutely. Well, and especially it's a Friday, it's still a school morning, they should have been, mom should have been up doing things, making breakfast, getting backpacks together. If one is, staying home from school, getting them comfortable on the couch, getting them their fluids or whatever they're needing to, get better. So yeah, absolutely. I agree. Um, I have a bad feeling about this too, Lori. Lori says, I feel those kids were gone days before they were reported. Yeah, and I do. I have a really strong feeling about that because there's just something wrong with that time frame. It's very all over the place. Nobody can really say. And, again, those lapses in time is a big one. And then just not knowing what time. Um, After 9 a.m., Detroit Rock City says, yeah. Yeah. But I have a really bad feeling too, Lori, that there was something that happened prior to, and then they had a time where they decided to call, say, 9 a.m. Thanks, Detroit. Because, yeah, I wasn't sure about a specific time either. And the Bushes says, I believe the parents are holding back some details from the public. I agree. I agree. And possibly even from the police, I'd be interested to know about the polygraph, who would be taking it, or I don't know exactly the laws in Canada, if it's something that they would make them do, but, Daniel says there's not a lot of people who would administer that in the area. So I'm guessing it's not something that is, that they do regularly, even through law enforcement, but I would like to know. Um, and Tony Fire says if they did leave that morning, then that they say, but if they were gone 1 or 2 days before then, they must be gone. Someone spoke about cars there on Thursday, and maybe they were taken that day. Yeah, absolutely. So there were supposedly cars on Wednesday or Thursday, yes, that were, really packing the property, right? So much so that one of them was parked on the roadside. So, yeah, I agree. I think you're right, Tony. I mean, something about maybe a couple of days before, maybe even the 1 or 2 days before, something has happened. And, we don't know how long, because if the kids were called out of school, then that even gives us a larger time frame to look at, that maybe something could have happened, So, yeah, thank you so much for your comment. Lori says, well, didn't they say the parents slept until 10 a.m.? Ooh, see, I haven't heard that. I haven't heard that. Yeah, and I don't know the exact time they were reported. And KJ Maxx says after 9 a.m. Detroit. Yep, that's a big red flag for me. Children, oops, sorry guys, I kicked my table here. Children even kept homesick don't usually sleep in. One was not sick or reported to be either. Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, usually they're up, right? They're not feeling good. They're coughing. They can't sleep because they don't feel good, right? Um, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The bus driver did an interview. It was good. Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to go check that out. The bus driver. And of course, covering this, I would really like to do it a little bit differently, and that's why I was pulling in a lot of news clips, because I didn't want to pull in a lot of extra stuff that creators were doing and things like that. I wanted to just kind of stick to the news clips and get a good baseline about what we're looking at, according to what the authorities are saying with the news. Even though mainstream media, we've talked about it before here, we don't always know what we're getting there either, but I kind of wanted to just start out there. And the parents stoned, yeah, less realizing the kids are gone. Right, exactly, exactly. And I think that that is a very strong possibility, right? Or if they were getting over whatever they had taken the night before, even if it was just booze or something, they could have been, still, you know, on one from the night before, or who's to say they didn't have, parties for a couple days and stuff like that, because the neighbor did say something about how they didn't know that there were kids even living there and that they always saw cars coming in and out all the time. Um, it's not common in the bushes, says. Robini says 911 came in at 10 a.m. Thanks, Robini. So 10 a.m., 10 a.m. They call. That's late. That's late, especially, yeah, that again, that time frame doesn't add up. Even if we say 9 o'clock, I mean, either way, I'm thinking, what time do they hop on the school bus? Typically they got a 20-minute school bus ride, I'm guessing school starts at maybe 8 o'clock. I don't know how they do things up in Canada. But the bus driver was really sweet, huh, Robini? Aw, it's just got to be devastating. It's just got to be devastating to know that you pick up these two beautiful little kids, and then all of a sudden they're missing, It's just got to be terrible. It makes me think about Sebastian's school and how, bright it was having him there. KJ Max says they didn't get up. They didn't get Sorry, I'll put that up there. They didn't get up that, not knowing to see if Lily was feeling better and able to go to school. Right, exactly. Or even taking care of them. So if you know that they're playing in there, and then obviously in the same house and things like that. But I mean, if one of them's sick and the other one's playing with the other one, I know it's kind of hard not to to get sick with the same people in the household, but you would think you would be having the one child that's not feeling good resting in another area, and then you would have, you know, the other child getting ready for school, brushing their teeth, all of that, lunches, breakfast, all that. Oh, gotcha. Thanks, KJ Mac. Detroit says the stepdad said that he saw Lily around 8:30 and he went back to sleep, and the mother never mentioned seeing them. She said she called 911 about 9:40 a.m. According to the grandma, the brother living there is older. Okay. So yeah, so about 9:40 a.m. Okay. Yeah, and even still, I mean, that is late. That's really late, you know. So yeah, and then why did he go back to bed at 8:30 if Lily was just in there? And then what about Jack? How is he going to get ready and go to school? Doesn't he still need to go, or is he too little cuz he's 4? You know? That is so true. Tony Fire says kids are creatures of habit. If they get up at 6 a.m. every day for school, that's what time they'll get up every day. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And that their little circadian rhythm is, set to that too, right? They have an internal clock just like we do. And, I agree with that. Definitely. They're going to be up and at 'em and ready to go. The parents obviously weren't, but Lily and Jack were. They were, up, like you said, Tony, probably about 6 a.m., ready to, rock the day away, and here they are. KJ Max says, well, it's possible the children wandered off. It will be hard to convince me. Neglect is not a huge theme here. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We haven't seen really the inside of the house. The outside looks a little bit questionable, but you know, yeah, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I think it's very hard to convince me of that as well, especially with the factors that we see. And I'm not saying that, just because you have a step parent in the house and that's the worst case scenario and that's just going to lead to an abduction or, whatever, unaliving or whatever. No, not at all. And, I don't think it has anything to do with gender either. You know what I mean? Whether it's a stepmom or stepdad, you know, but I think neglect is going to be the main culprit here. I think that, there's just too much saying that these kids were up and doing whatever they wanted to do while the parents were sleeping, and the parents can hear them doing whatever and, going through the house and everything. But, decided to stay in bed, and act like they weren't, up and going. Um, why didn't they get up and feed them? Exactly, in the bushes. Yeah. Yeah, they should have been already, ready and off and, starting their day. 10 a.m. is late in the morning. It really is. I'm glad you guys asked that because that's important. I was thinking it was again another situation where it was like a 7 o'clock or something like that, because that's around the time that, they're going to be catching that school bus, I would think. Um, Before mom took down her social medias, all the videos and pictures I saw, the surroundings were clean. Okay, good. In the bushes. Fantastic. Yeah, so that's good. So I mean, that's always a good sign, but even so, you know, Chris and Katie's house was clean too. KJ Maxx says not sending both to school, seeing the children at 8:30 a.m. on the school morning with a sick child. Mom not seeing them at all, and no mention of a baby who would have needed care before then. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I guess my question would be putting that into perspective with what you're saying there, KJ Mack, which makes a lot of sense, right? Would Daniel have gotten up with the baby and gotten the baby breakfast and I'm saying in terms of a 1-year-old, or if we're dealing with someone who's even 16 months old, you're probably doing like the cereal, that you mix up with, um, the milk and everything like that. Um, was the baby back asleep at a certain point, and then, he went back to bed at 8:30, or yeah, what's going on? And then you have a sick child, but mom never saw the sick child, never was taking care of her. She was too busy in the bed sleeping. And then you have the dad that went back to sleep at 8:30. Yeah, those kids were definitely unsupervised, and I betcha, I don't remember who said it earlier, but I think you hit the nail on the head saying that, Lily was probably the little mom of the family. Um, Detroit Rock City says Evil Exists has a picture of the brother. He looks like, or he looks older than Daniel, the one who lives with his mom. Okay, interesting. I'll have to go over and look. He has two brothers in the bush, says. And Tony Fire says 10 a.m. to get up. Wow, people think I'm sick. It's almost nap time for nap time for some. That's funny, Tony. Well, and with little ones, like you said, like they're ready to get up and at 'em and going, and they should have had breakfast. They should have been, well into their day at 10 a.m., even 9:40. Because yeah, say you get them up at 6 for school, it's just not adding up. There's a lot of red flags in this story. Um, I'll have to do a little bit more research into it, and we'll bring it in tomorrow too and talk about it. Because again, when we look around, it's hard to believe that they could have gotten very far, and I think that's what the authorities are thinking. But there is a main road right there. So, you just never know. You just never know. But we'll do some more research and check it out. And I'd like to know exactly, like, I wonder if there's a dispatch. It is so sad, Lori. It is. It is. These poor babies. And, hopefully there's a dispatch audio that we can go over. Detroit says babies will scream and cry if they're hungry and have dirty diaper. Who was watching the baby? Exactly. That's why I was thinking there had to have been somebody had to have gotten up with the baby and got, diaper change, fed, and then maybe back to sleep. And then they went back to sleep. Maybe they were, taking care of the baby and then, neglecting the other two older kids and being like, you guys can fend for yourself. You're old enough, kind of a thing, at 4 and 6, it obviously not. But, it could have very well been that way, you know, like you said, take care of the baby because the baby's crying, and then, um, oh, and the bushes says the baby was in bed with them. Okay, so that makes sense too. So change the baby, make a baba, you know, have the baby in the bed, and then the other two kids are just free for all, fend for yourselves. Hmm, interesting. And KJ Maxx says exactly Detroit. There was a multitude of reasons. Um, Sleeping in doesn't make sense. Well, it doesn't. It doesn't. There's something more going on there, and I'm guessing it has to do something with the time frame, that they're not wanting to give us the time frame because something is totally off with it. Whether something happened, you know, a day before, 2 days before, or if, you know, because I just don't see something happening that morning, although that is late in the morning. So, I mean, anything really could have happened, say, even if we were to go, you know, as and be generous and say even 9:30, right? Um, that's still very late in the morning and a lot of things could have happened. Um, KJ Maxx says, "Isn't that the trailer? It's not very big. If you go make a bottle or go change a diaper or even pee, you'd hear or see two children playing." Absolutely. And, you know, they were supposedly in the bedroom right next to her, too. So, yeah, absolutely. I agree. Um, you would definitely hear the kids. Absolutely. No doubt about it. No doubt. You know, even if they were trying to be quiet, you know, but aw, in the bushes says, "My heart just wants to believe their timeline." I know, and I wish we could. I mean, and, you know, there's a possibility that it could be explained away, but at this point, I'm just thinking I just really feel like something is off. I don't know really what to make of Daniel, you know, I really don't know what to make of Malaya, but, um and I hope I'm saying her name right. That is a pretty name if that is her name. Um, you know, I don't know what to think because it really makes me think that there had to have been neglect going on. There was something where they didn't know what was going on with the kids, you know, whether they did get out and they are someplace in the woods, because the woods is I mean, it's dense, it's, you know, dangerous. They were saying that even the rescuers, trained people, were having issues getting around in, you know, in and around the area. Um, oh gosh. Well, that's a good question. You know, I wonder how often they had the other two kids. It's been alleged that the biological father of the other two kids wasn't around, and so, you know, I'm guessing they had them all the time. I'm guessing it was a full-time thing in the bushes. But, well, guys, I'm gonna hop off here because we've been on for 3.5 hours almost. But I appreciate everybody being here, and let's all say prayers for these beautiful little kiddos, and then also our Sebastian Rogers. You know, I know that we haven't had confirmation of whether Sebastian is in Virginia or not. Um, but I'm hoping we're going to get that really soon so we can find out. You know, I'm praying for a miracle. Um, you know, every time we hear of a sighting or something like that, you know, we kind of get our hopes up, and, you know, I think it's a good thing that you know, there's tips coming in, especially because I think that the America's Most Wanted really helped out with that, so that's a definite positive. Um, You did hear the dispatch recordings, Robini? Oh, I need to go look for them. Like I said, I kind of just wanted to bring in like a baseline of information, you know, and then I also like Deception Detective. I was like, he did a good job. Um, Detroit says those walls have to be paper thin so who could sleep around the kids playing and running around? And of course, they would be hungry. Absolutely. Because she doesn't mention that they got up and ate breakfast. By 10 o'clock, by even 9:30, that's late for breakfast, especially when someone's up at 6, you know? Um, I mean, unless you're me, I just drink coffee all day usually. I'm really bad about that. And then I'll be like, oh gosh, it's dinner time. Um, oh, Daniel has 2 older kids in the bush that says. Okay, so no, Daniel has 2 older kids. Okay, so wondering how often he has them. Alrighty, so Daniel has 2 older kids. I don't know about those little ones. So they may have babysat a lot for the parents, you know? Aw. Well, you have a great day, Tony Fire. Thank you so much. I'm running to the hardware store. Love and peace to all the dragons and Sebastian. Aw, thanks, Tony. You have a great day. Thank you so much for being here. You guys are awesome. Thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate you guys. Like I said, I miss you guys when I'm not up here, so I always have a blast when I get to come back up. And then, you know, of course, I will see you all tomorrow. We'll get back into the swing of things. I've had a couple of things I've been working on behind the scenes and things like that. It's just been really crazy. But you know, just par for the course. But I wanted to bring in this new case because I know a lot of people were talking about it, and I know a lot of people were you know, interested. Robini says they found a pink shirt, blue shirt, or purple headband in the gas pipeline. Oh no. Oh boy. Oh. Well, that's no good. Well, let me look around for updates. The creator said they got them on Broadcastify. I saw the family pictures. Oh, I think it was Saturday on the Dispatch. Okay. Well, let me look a little bit further in. Because like I said, I wanted to pull kind of clips from the first 7 days because I thought it was really interesting. A lot of things mirrored Sebastian's case. But yeah, let's do a little bit more. And of course, thank you all so much for being here. You stay safe and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye. Thank you, Lori. Thank you guys. Thanks, Robini. You guys are awesome.